Yeah, well,
That's what I just said.
We actually do have pictures from junior prom. I've looked at them recently.
Put them up on the screen.
very good. Thank you, Judge and Judge. Thank you. I'd like to call to order then our workshop, city workshop, and I've lost my agenda.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's fire marshal, but.
Hey, Steve, fire marshal.
Well, it's on the screen. Discussion, thank you. It's on the screen in big writing. Thank you very much. Discussion, possible action to.
Oh, they took it away. There.
Oh, there it is, back.
Regarding the creation of a fire marshal position, associated job duties and potential salary requirements. Eddie?
Yes, Mayor and Council, as a result of the July 18th City Council retreat, one of the items up for discussion that the council wished to have a workshop on was a fire marshal position within the Guthrie Fire Department. If you'll recall to August 1st City Council meeting, in our retreat debrief, we did outline a number of tasks for city staff to complete prior to this workshop. At this time, myself, Chief Lawson, Justin Fortney, and Planning Director Dan Kasich will tag team this item and discuss it, hopefully to the best of our abilities, and allow time for any questions. One of the first items we wanted to start with on this was the monthly meeting with the downtown merchants. So Chief Lawson, myself, Justin, and Dan, we did meet with the downtown merchants. Chief Lawson, do you want to give a recap of that meeting for the council, please?
So, Mayor and Council, when we met on August 4th with the downtown merchants, there were a couple of concerns when we brought up the fire marshal. Some of them were by adding this position, they target certain owners downtown. This meeting, the fire marshal will be used to go after building owners, like sitting on vacant buildings, not necessarily able to determine life safety issues that are typical of a fire marshal. Some of those fines related to non-compliance would not be affordable, nor would the cost of adding items necessary for code compliance. Barriers to develop could potentially increase due to the current code requirements for life to safety. The buildings in our downtown are historic and are already not easy to insure or remodel. And then kind of the last one was they threw out we should hire more firemen instead of adding a fire marshal position. Overall, I thought the meeting was very productive. For the most part, they understood the need for a fire marshal. We told them that this was a union position and it would have to be negotiated with the union in fiscal year 2024. And that was about the recap of our meeting with the downtown merchants and their concerns.
They do know that we have an auxiliary fire marshal we can bring in if we needed to, right?
Correct.
And it's my understanding that the fire chief can act as fire marshal, that he has all of the powers of the fire marshal.
Correct.
By virtue of his office as fire chief. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
My other comment would be regarding the code requirements. When you adopt the building code, you can exempt portions of the code. So for example, on new construction for residential properties, the current model code calls for fire suppression in residential areas, and many states have opted out of that. Is that also possible to opt out of that in lieu of a 2-hour burn-through barrier as part of the code?
Are you talking about new neighborhoods?
I'm asking in terms of existing structure.
Buildings down.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we already opt out of the residential. The state of Oklahoma, that's one of the portions that they opt out with their adoption. We have adopted what the state has, so from a residential standpoint, we don't require sprinklers. If you have multi-units, which is more than 2, if you have 3 or more, it falls into the commercial, which requires sprinkling in that, depending on how, and the same with any other development, whether you have
So could you do a, in lieu of, is what I'm asking, could you say that you have a fire barrier of a 2-hour burn through in lieu of
Yes.
fire suppression in the code? I mean, you don't have to adopt the code in total. So for example, with the I used to teach the code course, the
OUBCC.
the UCC, you can opt out of portions of the UCC, and states have. Most states have not adopted the UCC with regard to the threshold for what constitutes a sale of goods, for example. Could you do a similar adoption with the fire code?
Yeah.
And opt out of that portion and have an alternative, which would be a fire barrier in lieu of fire suppression?
Yeah,
Because
I mean, right. I mean, just to answer your question, yes, there's portions that we can opt out locally in that. The problem is if I remember correctly, by state law, we have to have the minimum, or at least the minimum of what the state has adopted. So if we start to take some of those areas out, we won't be in compliance with the state and what they have adopted. That would probably be the only hiccup. Because it's like everything, we can be less or more restrictive, we just
can't be less restrictive.
Yeah.
All right.
And I believe that's something we could explore,
yeah,
yes. So it's either you adopt what the OUBCC, Oklahoma Uniform Building Code, or you can red pin it yourself. But I think we can explore that further and get a final decision.
But one thing I wanted to add real quick so everybody's clear, not every building in the downtown has to be sprinklered or even be sprinklered at this point. It goes back to what, we were talking about in terms of use, the area that you're encompassing with that particular use, et cetera, et cetera. In a lot of cases, it could be simply just a 2-hour firewall. Usually the automatic kick-in is residential above and commercial below. But just because there's a commercial building downtown right now that's not sprinklered doesn't mean it will require to be sprinklered, even if we go forth with some type of inspection process. So I just want to make that clear.
That's good.
So if I was hearing correctly, that the fire chief has the authority, if you will,
Correct.
in lieu of having a fire marshal.
If we get a
So-
legitimate complaint, I'm allowed to enter that building.
Okay.
So as a follow-up, Mayor, just to jump in real quick, the chief and I met last week and visited with the fire marshal from Midwest City, and then Chief Lawson followed up with the state fire marshal's office. And in exploring these conversations, the state fire marshal says the office of the fire chief in a municipality has the right to enter any structure as long as there is a valid complaint. Now, I think the statute is a little ambiguous, personally. I think the city attorney would probably agree with me on that. In his capacity today as the fire chief, Chief Lawson has the authority to say, we need to go into the structure. Statute says within a reasonable time frame. So I assume that means not at 2 o'clock in the morning. But again, there's a whole lot of interpretation there. So we did learn that.
That's something he does not have the right to go in for just general inspection where a regular fire marshal would.
He does have that
He does have
authority.
that right.
Yep, yep.
Okay,
Does it
so,
require a complaint?
That's the question.
So I'll read you the statute. And
Okay.
so upon the complaint of any person having an interest in any building or property adjacent and without any complaint, shall have the right at all reasonable hours for the purpose of an examination to enter into and upon all buildings and premises within their jurisdiction. So with a complaint and without a
and
complaint.
without, yeah.
There you go.
Well, so,
Position filled.
so if, so if the chief has that authority and responsibility, that, so what is the issue?
I
So,
guess the issue is the knowledge requirement of the building codes that would be required of an independent fire marshal position. And so it would be somebody who had basically Dan's knowledge of the
Yeah.
building code combined with the licensure and certificate of a firefighter. Is that
Fire
correct?
certification as well.
Yeah, because he did inform us, when we were talking to Dwayne, they have several issues in Midwest City. Whenever a planning director goes into a building, they don't get near the respect until a badge and gun show up. So,
Now, I counter that with, if you're a fire marshal, you're always going to recommend that everybody have a fire marshal. If I'm a city manager, I'm going to recommend every city has a city manager.
Right.
So I think at this point, what we would like to do, if we're going to add this position, we can't negotiate it until the end of this year for next year anyway. We've determined that the fire chief in his current capacity has the authority to enter into a structure within a reasonable time frame, with or without a complaint. I think what we'd like to explore at this point is a joint partnership between the building department and the fire department, not necessarily making the fire chief the bad guy, not the building department a bad guy, but combine the knowledge of the building department and the authority of the fire chief, and perhaps add some capacity in City Hall in the planning department, potentially.
See, I like that. I wouldn't mind, Dan's got enough to do, but I wouldn't mind letting Dan go out there and help on some of that stuff. Because you already know what the codes are.
it's volunteer.
I mean, he could volunteer. You have nothing else better to do anyway. So.
Eddie and I talked briefly, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an avenue that isn't gonna put additional, stress on our department by any means, but I think it's an avenue that we could accomplish what I think we're all intending to, accomplish with that position, and that is for, hopefully better code compliance without that.
So in addition to the other items that we're to follow up on, the chief and I did review salary requirements and job descriptions based on, one, the market, and two, what we already had in the SOG. And so there is a job description in your packet from 2006 that is current today. And then also the salary range, which is in the existing pay plan, starts at 56,000 base salary and tops out at 79,000 base salary, and the benefits package is worth approximately 20,000 plus or minus. So if we go the fire marshal route, you're looking six figures. So just know we have explored that. Go ahead.
Was Smith, was he the last fire marshal we had?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that's been a long time ago.
2006 or something.
Okay.
Well, I guess, under the FLSA requirements that it's non-exempt, given the educational requirement of the job, the fact that it has an enormous amount of discretion and has the potential for reports direct to, I'm not convinced that it's a non-exempt position. And I guess I would ask our city attorney why it would be a non-exempt position when it could be an exempt position. I mean, it seems to me that it's a managerial type role because of the discretion that is associated with that role and the level of expertise.
I would agree. A current job description would report directly to the chief and would also be an exempt position. This job description is existing from the SOG, so it's already in place. We just haven't filled the capacity.
Another thing too, just to throw in there with, in regards to the, from the state level, I'm just throwing this out there again, and when we were talking about exemptions or whatever, I had to have them come to my building at the train depot because I have a restaurant in it, et cetera, and the current structure now is from 1903, and the back hallway is not wide enough for what would be built today. However, the state marshal says this is a historical building, so we're not going to make you widen this back section. So my point is, I think one of the fears too brought up with some of the other merchants was that, oh, they're going to make us widen the door frames and all this kind of stuff, and like, no, that's not, they take the historical significance into consideration.
Well, and that was never mentioned. I mean, the three other colleagues here can vouch for me when I say that.
This was after you guys left.
Oh. Okay, well, if the city officials leave the room and then
Right.
yeah.
Well, but it's fine. It doesn't matter if it was there just to me on the street. My point is that there is historical significance taken into consideration for these things where they say, well, we're not gonna do this because it will require you to alter the, you know, the structure of your building too much or whatever. I'm just saying that is real because they've come to my place and they have made those exemptions.
Sure. So I think at this point, we would ask, allow us the discretion and the time, in my capacity as the city manager, to visit with the department heads. Let's develop a plan of attack. I think there's more than one way here to get where we want to go. And that could include some downtown incentives in the future. We've thrown that out there to a couple of you already. Something to encourage and entice, not only minimum maintenance, but also perhaps some upgrades. So we do it well. Let's continue to do it well. Let's focus on what we do well. So.
Well, I think if we have or can develop the technical capability, and within the three players that you talked about already, I think we could better use maybe that salary at this point in time for something else.
I think we just call you Marshall.
Fire Chief Marshal.
Chief Marshal.
We'll even get you the shirt that says Chief Marshal.
Hey,
He,
if it
he
blows
needs
up,
something
you can
else to
blame
do,
Dan.
so we can
Yeah.
add to that.
All the crowns.
Yeah, we can add Marshall to the truck.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything that you got in the packet tonight that perhaps you would like to see differently, or something we need to follow up on? Obviously, if we go to hire a fire marshal, we're not going to use this job description, but it is what's there, so that's what I've provided to you. I can't fill this position today, even if I wanted to, so we did not go through that effort.
I think we need to.
Okay.
I think we've got the position filled.
Well, it's like Grant said, there's a lot of code expertise that goes into it.
Well, and a lot of it's going to be the implementation. And so having the right person to do this is going to be, it's either going to make or break the program and, quite frankly, our reputation. So. Any other questions for the chief, myself?
Would you repeat what you said? I couldn't overhear the conversation next to me.
So the implementation, the spirit, the intent of what we're trying to do here for code enforcement purposes and life safety is going to be crucial to the success of the program, right? So going forward, I think we've got to understand that we're learning and use it with kid gloves, but also we've got over a century of neglect. And so it's going to take some time. We're not going to fix it in 6 months.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
Or, you know, I always hear empty buildings are the issue. How many do we really have? Do we know?
Not offhand, obviously we have less than we've had recently, because even on the east block over there, that's pretty much filled up. We have a couple businesses that are, as you know, went out of business and that, but honestly, I could get a figure, because I had roughly an amount, but it's far less than.
Are they, it seems like that would be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, is that how you look at it? Is that it's an issue when they're empty? As far as fire suppression, the whole, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, even occupied, it can still be an issue,
Right.
obviously, if maintenance isn't done, but it gets worse when they're vacant.
Yeah.
Well, and not only maintenance, but the use, the occupancy use. Anytime you have a mixed-use structure where you have folks who are living above a convenience store or a restaurant, from a code perspective, it's entirely dangerous. And that's why they, you know, Jim, you know what I'm talking about. So, not to mention the electrical in these buildings. Something we heard from the merchants, the hardship of insuring the buildings alone is difficult. So that's not something we took into account prior to.
does a full-time fire marshal negate that and lower that cost? That's another question I have, you know.
Oh, you mean like our ladder truck did? Breaking down our insurance.
Or a fire hydrant out in front of my house, you know, or.
Any improvement to your structure, for example, the copy shop? Shelton did tell us that when he had to put a new roof on before he could insure the building. And when he did that, his premium decreased significantly, so.
I mean, we have a lot of.
But I think you have to look at the return on that investment over how many years would that, you know, take to pay for itself. The other concern that I have is, given the fact that we have a number of firefighting positions that are unfilled and the increased cost, it's a balancing act in my mind.
Sure.
When we talk about safety, having an adequately staffed fire department is part of that balancing act. And being able to provide appropriate response times with adequate manpower for the service area that we have, which is enormous as a result of the fact that the district extends beyond the boundaries of the city itself. And so, you know, if we allocate those resources, money is fungible, and you cannot then adequately allocate those resources to filling those positions. You know, I mean, this is.
I agree. I agree to one aspect of that. However, I also think that it's a lot easier to prevent a fire than to put one out. And we saw what happened with the fiddle shop. It took like 9 departments to come around for 24 hours to get it to stop.
Well, it could have been a lot worse if the wind had been a different direction too.
That's right.
So.
And it would have been much better had it not happened in the first place, and we had firewall protection, and they weren't running cables through the walls and letting it spread over to the next building, et cetera. But I agree with both. I would like us to have additional firefighters on top of this. I think both are needed.
Finding the sweet spot between somebody on the line versus an administrative position. As far as administrative positions go, we're probably not leaning in that direction. However, for prevention and life safety, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, what was the name of the building that burnt down prior to the fiddle shop? It happened right before I did. It was downtown. I believe it was another restaurant.
Oh, that Chinese
It was the
restaurant?
Chinese restaurant. That's right. I looked into that one. That one started because of an electrical fire because of faulty wiring.
The Lentz building, or not the Lentz department store, but the Lentz Realty property also was a victim of fire, and I believe that was rebuilt. But I mean, I appreciate the prevention. If you go down that road, though, I mean, ultimately, the absolute most safe thing would be to tear down all of the buildings and build new buildings, right, that are to code.
Well,
And I don't think any of us would.
Well, I think there's reasonable expectations of safety regardless of how old the building is. No, if it's built this year or 100 years ago, you don't need hot wires hanging down from the ceilings, just flaring about. You don't need to be drilling holes into the walls yourself and running extension cords in to supply people who live in the apartment, which is an actual thing that's going on right now in one of the buildings. So it doesn't matter how old it is or how new it is, that cannot be allowed. That is a disaster getting ready to happen. We've seen it already multiple times. That's what we're talking about.
However, I don't think we're talking about an either or. I don't think we're talking about a different way of accomplishing, facilitating safety through a different mechanism than hiring a fire marshal.
Correct, yeah.
So it's not that we're saying safety is out the door and we're just dealing with putting out the fire. We're saying just there's a different way there's multiple ways of handling what the fire marshal will do.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
If it's like we say, it's a case-by-case basis, and not just on hearsay, but there's a certain criteria of how that is to be taken seriously, I'm all for that without hiring the fire marshal position, but only if the chief feels that he's able to do it. He's very busy already.
I was going to say, in his current capacity, I don't have any employees who have free time, myself included. So, and I'm not saying that you were insinuating that. But the chief today, I'm not going to assign that to him. He does not have capacity to do that. If we had additional capacity, and by that I mean an additional person, and in some department that can alleviate from one person or another and then work jointly, that scenario works. But saying, Chief Lawson, you're now fire marshal and you have to do this, I'm not going to do that to him. That's not the way to do this.
So he technically could go into the building as fire marshal, and I'm just using this for an example, and introduce Dan in this particular scenario and say, here's what Dan's going to be doing, and he's going to report it back to me, and then you can leave
Yes.
and go back to your.
Stay, but
Well,
yes.
you don't have to stay.
You are- yes,
That's what
you
I'm
are
saying.
on- yes,
Dan-
you're on track.
And he can go through it, alleviate
Yeah.
that way. He's not spending his time in there.
No, from a legal perspective, he would be the one, if he was to issue a citation, that would have to witness the violation, because Dan is not authorized to do that. He would have to be the one that would have to stay and go through it, discuss what the level of probable cause is, and issue
So that doesn't work.
a citation.
It would be a
When-
joint effort between. Dan
Yes, when Jim Smith was fire marshal, I believe he was also assistant chief in the department. And so, do we have an assistant chief position currently? We
We
have
didn't-
battalion chiefs.
We have 3 battalion chiefs and then the chief. And so,
All right.
not only in the fire department, but throughout the city, we're moving towards a model that, again, not only for succession planning, but for stability purposes, we're moving towards a model that has an assistant in every capacity.
Well, what I was envisioning though is not where he is the fire marshal, where he goes out every day at a certain time, with all these appointments going down the row. I'm saying again, like on a case-by-case basis, like Jim Case is hired to do electrical work in a building and he sees all this stuff, he reports it, then he goes out. It's not that he just goes down the row onto each building and just goes in.
But according to state statute, you're the only one that can act as fire marshal without an official fire marshal anyway, right? We can't have a battalion chief assume that role or a assistant chief.
Not when you-
Well, the state fire marshal believes that the fire chief has the authority to delegate his power to another position.
Okay, well,
However, I don't see that in statute, and the city attorney does not. So I think you can. I believe it happens all over the state. But it's not really clear.
it's debatable.
One further clarification, it's not that he's acting as marshal, the statute gives him as fire chief the authority.
Right. That's what I'm saying too. Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm talking about the authority to delegate it.
Oh, okay.
To delegate it to a battalion
It
chief
doesn't
or
give
an
you the
assistant.
time, it gives you the authority.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So,
I think we're good.
Okay, any other questions from council?
Correctional facilities, you're probably doing regular inspections of those anyway, right?
The what?
Correctional facilities.
that's included in that statute, which is in your packet.
But I suspect he's doing that now, considering the significance of the fact that it's housed by individuals and liability. Is that something you do annually
That'll
too?
be the state.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Chief, thank you.
Do we have a clear path forward? We're all on the,
I think we're
okay.
giving you some direction. It's in your hands to do the,
Latitude.
Talk about it in the fall.
okay? All right. I adjourn our city council workshop. Those of you that have not been here, pardon?
Found the money. Good
How
job.
about that? How about that? We're nailing it. You want to open the doors and let the folks in? in, folks. I'm sorry? I want to get that confirmation. Well, it's just the same. Charlie's is different.
Well, you can't get ready to go into
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna steal the, I thought you were gonna make it.
Okay. Okay, folks. Those of you that haven't been here before, we open our Guthrie Public Works and City Council meeting with a salute to the flag. So I'll be asking you to stand for that and then remain standing. And we will have a prayer by the chaplain. So if you would all stand, Vice Mayor Gary, would you lead us in the pledge to our flag and country?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. You want? Well, I think they're bringing some more. Pastor, would you please lead us in prayer?
Gladly. Let us pray. Almighty God, we gather before you today with hearts filled with gratitude for the blessings you have bestowed upon our growing city in the heart of Oklahoma. We're thankful for the beauty of our community, the kindness of our neighbors, and the opportunities for growth and prosperity that you've provided. As we come together for the City Council meeting, we offer our humble prayers of gratitude, protection for our city's leaders and residents, and for a commitment to caring for our entire creation. May we all be inspired to work together to make our city a place of love and opportunity for all. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please be seated. Call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of September 5th.
You're stealing my stuff.
Second item on the agenda is public comments, community recognitions, announcements. Okay. Or handing out papers too. We can do that. Commander Downs. Sir. You have a request to make a public announcement.
Yes. May I first, sir?
Absolutely.
I'm going to start over here, if that's okay?
Sure.
Please take a look at this and pass it on down. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You have 5 minutes.
Sir, Mayor and Council, myself and some other Legionnaires are here tonight to speak about Honor Park. It's an honor and a privilege for the American Legion to help with the maintenance of Honor Park here in Guthrie. The LeBron Post 58 American Legion helps maintain Honor Park, its utilities, and other maintenance as needed. We couldn't do this without other volunteers and sponsors, to include Mayor Gentling, who's a Legionnaire and also a retired colonel. For those of you that don't know, he spends many hours working at Honor Park, and also the Blue Star Flag monument over by the city council, or by the courthouse. But we also have terracotta for donating plants, flowers, and other items to Honor Park. We also have Aaron and Brooke Husky of Husky Turf Solutions that have donated their services as a sponsor to maintaining the lawn at Honor Park. And also a new sponsor, Luxury Lawns, is going to be taking care of the actual mowing of Honor Park for us. And to help with the cost of Honor Park, we accept donations and we sell memorial bricks like the one I'm passing along there now. A memorial brick is a great way to remember and honor a military member, whether it's family member or other veteran. The new brick that I passed around is our new provider. Many of the bricks that are over there right now are becoming unreadable to where you can't identify who that brick actually was for. Ron Powell, who's a Legion member, has kept track of a lot of those bricks so that we are going to, in a process, replace those bricks with the new style brick. The new brick, when it is laser cut, turns that area into like a black glass, so hopefully it will last a very long time. We've kind of estimated that there's 400 to 500 bricks over there right now that are becoming unreadable. And just as an estimated cost, 10 to 12,000 probably to replace those bricks. Like I said earlier, Honor Park in Guthrie is a place where family and friends have a unique opportunity to create a lasting tribute to a loved one or friend, to all heroes who served our country during wartime and peace. U.S. veterans, veterans organizations, and individuals who exemplify the American spirit. Since Honor Park's dedication, I believe it was in January of 1992, several brick pavers have been placed to honor veterans. Guests visit the park from around the state, nation, and the world to see the red bricks at Honor Park. And I just wanted to be here tonight to tell you that it's an honor and a privilege for the American Legion to be part of Honor Park and to help maintain that. And to thank everyone that has anything to do with helping us with Honor Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander. If I could just add, from the plant side of the operation, in addition to Red Dirt, the local greenhouse contributing significant plants, Walmart also gives us a spring and a fall donation to purchase plants.
I knew you would know more about the donation of the plants.
And TLC every year. So I don't want them to be left out. That's just on the plant side. So thank you, Commander, and the Legion for making that a special place for all veterans.
Charles, did you mention how much the bricks are?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
The bricks cost is $25. The Legion, if somebody purchases a new brick, we charge $50. 25 of that goes into Honor Park Fund to help with the maintenance and any repairs we need.
Okay, thank
That
you.
goes into a separate fund at the American Legion.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
So if we decide we want to replace a brick, like my dad's might be fading away, so can we, do we pay an additional $50 for that, or just pay 25?
$25. And I have some brick forms here.
Okay.
Not a great copy, but yeah,
Sure.
So is that just on a new brick, it's 50?
50 on the new bricks, yeah.
on a replacement brick, we've already had someone donate. I think we've replaced 10 to 20 of the old bricks for new bricks.
Okay, very good. Anybody else want an application? There you go. Get them quick, get them quick.
We have more, so.
Didn't know you were doing a sales meeting here, did you?
Well, we're passing them out. My name is
Anybody
Ron
else in the
Powell.
audience want an application? Do we have?
I have,
We will get them for you.
there's one right, see,
We will get them
there's,
for you.
My name is Ron Powell. We're also starting, if somebody wanted to know if that name was in there, we can probably tell them because we have a paper trail, but we don't have any idea where it's at. So as we're replacing them, we're trying to start a file that will become online, especially in the future where we can look up a name and tell them what row, what brick it is, so we can go right to it. It's going to be probably a several-year project, but that's our ultimate goal, is to do that. But we're going to doing that. I've already identified all of the ones that's up around the monuments, plus the first 3 rows of reprints. So
Okay.
that's going to be part of this whole project.
Thank you, Ron. All right, very good. Is Meg Cannon here? Meg? Let me meet you down here at the podium. Meg, you are with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and
Substance
Abuse Services?
Yes, I am the Suicide Prevention Program Director.
All right, good. Well, I have a special proclamation that I'd like to read and give to you. And it's a proclamation designating September as Suicide Prevention and Recovery Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas 4.1% of adults in Oklahoma have had serious thoughts of suicide this past year, with 1 in 10 students reporting attempted suicide in the last 12 months. Whereas nearly 300,000 Oklahomans report having a substance abuse disorder, chronic or treatable disease that individuals can recover from and go on to live healthy lives. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a profound difference in the successful management of mental illnesses, suicide prevention and recovery from substance abuse disorders. And whereas the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services believes that all Oklahomans deserve to have mental health and addiction services within reach, without fear of judgment or shame, through the evidence-based crisis response continuum, which meets people where they are and when they need it most. And whereas recovery-oriented care and recovery support systems help people with mental health and substance use disorder manage their conditions successfully with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health Services and Substance Abuse, having provided since January of 2023 more than 80,000 Narcan kits to Oklahomans to prevent fatal overdose resulting from opioid use, including fentanyl. And whereas the 988 Mental Health Lifeline supports Oklahomans experiencing a mental health crisis, struggling with substance abuse, or having thoughts of suicide, through trained mental health professionals via text or call, mobile crisis teams, urgent care and crisis centers, and follow-up appointments. Now therefore, I, Stephen J. Gentling, Mayor of Guthrie, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 as Suicide Prevention and Recovery Awareness Month to increase public's understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote identification and treatment of mental illnesses that leads to suicide prevention. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for this. Every 11 hours, one of our fellow Oklahomans dies by suicide. And I don't know if you caught that 80,000 Narcan kit number. That's since January of this year. So that's in 9 months. We're sending out a little less than 10,000 Narcan kits a month right now. Those are available. If you're not aware about 988, which is Oklahoma's new mental health lifeline service, you can call and text 24 hours a day for any mental health questions that you have. It's not a suicide, it's not just for suicide, and it's not just for emergencies. In fact, we prefer that you do call or text before you're at the point of an emergency. So thank you so much, this means so much, and I'm hoping we'll be back in Guthrie soon to do some more outreach and awareness.
Thank you very much, Meg. A number of you have filled out the form to make a comment concerning one of the topics that's on our agenda. And I would just ask that unless you have something that's a different perspective than the previous presenters, just to speed things up, but also want you to be available to present your message. So I don't want to contract that. But just want to know, if you're going to say the same as the person just in front of you, maybe we can just move it along a little bit faster. And Lisa, where are you? I suspect you probably have a better sense of that than anybody else.
That's item 4 on the council agenda,
Right,
I believe.
right. It is when we get to that point, not now, but when we get to that point. Okay? Just wanted to make that aware. Okay, item number 3 is consent agenda A through C. A is the approval of Public Works Authority minutes of August 15th. B is the approval of engagement letter with Crawford and Associates for accounting and consulting in fiscal year 2024. And C is the approval of resolution 2023-36, renewal of a lease purchase agreement with Farmers Merchants Bank for a period of 1 year, starting October 1st and ending September 30th, 2024. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any of those items? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then of consent agenda items A, B, and C. Item number 4, public hearing. I'll open a public hearing on our 2024 budget for the Guthrie Public Works Authority. Dave, you take it.
Yes, Mayor and Council, staff has prepared a modified budget balance for the general fund, GPWA, and miscellaneous funds for fiscal year '24. The proposed budget has been presented and discussed with the chairman and the trustees at the previous meeting. Public notice was printed in the Guthrie News Leader on August 30th, 2023, notifying the public that a public hearing would be held on September 5th, 2023 for public comments. We have completed the budget process in accordance with Title 11. The resolution that will follow this agenda item provides the city manager with the flexibility to control the budget and amend one count to another within the same fund. It is still subject to city council approval, GPWA trustees' approval as well. The proposed resolution also provides the city manager with the authority to submit grant applications for grants without prior approval of the trustees, which again is past practice. And at this time, we would entertain any questions or public comment.
Are there any questions from the public? This is a public hearing. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Move on to item number 5, which is discussion, possible action on resolution 2023-34, which is the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Guthrie Public Works Authority.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the budget? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See votes. Unanimous approval then of resolution number 2023-34, which is the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget. Item number 6, discussion possible action to authorize city staff to enter into a contract to provide medical, dental, and vision services and renew the contract with Standard Life to provide life, AD&D insurance for city employees for fiscal year 24. Liz?
Liz is not with
Liz
us
is not
tonight,
here?
so I will.
Are you handling that too?
I will handle this as well.
Okay, good.
All right, Mayor and Council, this is a typical annual renewal. Liz has worked diligently with our broker on this item to ensure that we get the best cost possible. I will tell you that at this point, we're going to recommend renewal with United Healthcare. The percentage increase that first started out this negotiation process was about an 18% increase in premiums. Luckily, Liz and our broker worked diligently, and we were down to a 6% increase with no change in coverage or providers. So at this time, that is well within what we've budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year. So at this time, I would recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any
Good
other
job,
discussion?
Liz.
I'm sorry?
I'll say good job, Liz, wherever you are. That's up to you, production.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Submit your votes, please.
All votes are in.
Unanimous approval then to authorize staff to enter into contract to provide medical, dental, and vision insurance coverages as presented by our city manager. That is the last item on our agenda for Guthrie Public Works. I'll adjourn that, and I'll open our city council meeting of Tuesday, September 5th. Second item on the agenda is consent agenda items A through L. A is the approval of the special city council workshop minutes of August 15th. B is the approval of the city council minutes of August 15th. C is the approval of renewal of Honor Park lease agreement between the city of Guthrie and the American Legion. D is the approval of the civil defense siren maintenance agreement between the city of Guthrie and Goddard Enterprises. E is the agreement between the city of Guthrie and Logan Community Services for temporary shelter care of juveniles. F is the approval of EMS agreement between the city of Guthrie and Logan County Emergency Medical Systems District 1-1 Board of Trustees. G is the approval of EMS agreement between the city of Guthrie and the North and East Logan County EMS District Board of Trustees. Sorry. H is the approval of professional service agreement with Dr. Robert William Warden, serve as medical director for the Guthrie Fire Department Emergency Medical Services. I is the approval of engagement letter with Crawford & Associates for accounting and consulting for fiscal year 24. J is the approval of pay application number 10 with Young Contracting for the amount of $38,117 for the CDBG waterline replacement project on Division Street. K is approval of pay application number 11 with Young Contracting for the amount of $60,980 for the same project on Division. And L is the approval of cooperative service field agreement between the city of Guthrie and the Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport and the U.S. Department of Wildlife Services for removal of deer, coyote, and other nuisance wildlife threatening aircraft and human health on the airport property. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of any of those items?
Yes, I have a question on the ambulance. The $120,000 that we're paid for, that's just a portion of the coverage from Mulhall, Orlando, Covington, Douglas, Coyle, Perkins, Wellston, and Luther.
That's correct. There,
Just a portion, that's.
yep, that EMS district is fairly new, and so there are multiple providers. We're not the only provider in that portion of the district.
So we're considered a backup?
I'll defer to the chief on that. I wouldn't say we're the backup, but I'll say we probably provide the best care in that district, but we're not the only provider.
It's a big district.
It
It's a
is.
huge district.
It is a large
Why
district.
we wear ambulances every year, right?
So that's part of our five district. And we don't necessarily run all of these, but we've got certain areas like Wellston and
And then when you're in Wellston, who covers the city of Guthrie? Whoever, right?
we have left fire
Who-
department, but this area is part of.
I mean, for an ambulance run, you have to dispatch Miller or who else? I mean, if you're out in that, if both your ambulances are out, you gotta dispatch somebody else from outside to come in together. Because you're trying to cover all this. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other
So
questions?
what if we didn't agree to that? What happens? The whole district. So that's the kicker. There's no option but to agree to it.
We'd still have to cover it, right? Even if we lost that, if we gave that up?
No.
But what's the financial impact?
It's a significant amount of money and a lot of our personnel.
So
You also bill for those runs outside of the city limits.
that's correct.
And Medicare pays for a significant portion of those bills.
Greatly reduced.
Yes.
Greatly
I would
reduced.
say so. So they've got a flat rate of about $580. We bill out probably a base rate of about $1,800 doesn't pay, the patient doesn't pay, the remaining balance get due.
So the EMS district is funded via the ad valorem taxes, which is capped at 3 meals. And so, for example, the previous item, which funds approximately $600,000 on an annual basis, that's 90% of their 3-meal cap. And so it's not intended to fully fund the EMS service. As we can see, it doesn't. We continue to lobby to have that law changed. However, it is a supplement.
So $600K annually, plus whatever you can collect.
Plus our revenue.
Yep.
Plus your-
Total EMS funding for fiscal year '23 was approximately $1.6 million.
What's the percentage of uncollected on?
That was huge.
It's far less with our new provider. Chief, do you have that?
Correct, yeah, because we changed providers recently, and we collected like 800 before we switched over to them, and then I think they projected about 1.3.
1.3 million. So there's a substantial increase.
And then we've got to get, I've been working with our billing company, myself and another paramedic on a different shift, Blake Braden, and we're trying to, we have to bring it to you guys first, but we'd like to raise a couple of our rates because we're far behind in what we're charging. So that's something we're looking into, and then a subscription fee, which is optional. And we can pay like $150 per household and get covered. A lot of companies do it, and they pulled someone similar to us, and it brought in roughly about $70,000 a year.
So at the
What-
advice of the former chief, we switched collection agencies or billing companies. And that was supposed to be for a much, had proven a much greater return.
Correct.
Has that been the truth with that? Can you give a percentage of how much more?
They take 6%.
But as overall collections increase,
You're looking at
Over half.
Didn't they pull in
Over half
500,000 or so more?
500,000.
More.
Than what we budgeted this year. So we budgeted $935,000 this year. We're on track to finish the year at 1.3.
What's the differential in billing between a paramedic and an EMT?
Actually, but an ALS run is about 1,800, and then a basic is about 15.
Okay. And the 3-meal cap that the city manager talked about is again something that's controlled at the state level. It would take a state vote to change that. And we as one community have gone through the Oklahoma Municipal League, ACOG, other sources, obviously our state delegation, to try to make them aware of the impact that it has on us as providers and other cities that have EMS services that are providing to rural America. But so far that hasn't changed things. So they're bumping up against a cap too. They're providing the max that they can provide to us. They're kind of caught in the middle.
thank you.
I have a question on L. I hate this, but I always hate this, I hate voting for this every time I have to, but I hate doing it. How many animals do we take off the airport every year?
Our airport director is in the room.
Yes, he is.
Cameron?
Yes, so just in the last year alone, they've taken 2. Previous years, I'm not sure what that's been, but they've taken 2 just in the time I've been here. I started to see Guthrie in late, in January, or June 26th, so late June timeframe. They've taken 2. With the increase in wildlife incidents that we've had, they've been an instrumental part of helping us kind of mitigate mitigate the wildlife in that area, whether that be the deer on the runway, the coyotes, the turkeys, as our airport board chairman, Dr. Gary would say, lots of pilots see wildlife experience out of our airport, and they're a big part of helping us with that.
I've almost hit a turkey, yes. It is a significant issue. It's a significant issue at every airport in Oklahoma, I can tell you that.
And the cost for this agreement is $3,000. So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda items A through L. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Saran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve consent agenda items A through L. Item number 3, discussion possible action regarding the non-exclusive franchise agreement with Dobson Technology for fiber optic for a term not to exceed 10 years, starting September 5th, 2023. Eddie?
yes, Mayor and Council, in attendance tonight, we have a representative from Dobson Fiber. Jim Horsbrough is here with us. Staff began conversations with Dobson Technologies, doing business as Dobson Fiber, approximately 12 months ago. This conversation has gone on for quite some time, in excess of that 12 months. This franchise agreement, per state statute, will include a 5% gross revenue fee to the city and will meet all other applicable terms as set by the statute. We currently have 2 existing franchise agreements with Cox and AT&T. And essentially what we're doing is allowing this company to utilize public right-of-way in exchange for the fee. And so there's been lots of questions in regards to what happens when the private company gets to the public right-of-way and the right-of-way is full and they have an agreement, they're paying us to utilize it. That agreement says if there's right-of-way, they're allowed to use it. If there is no right-of-way, they have to purchase private right-of-way to place their utility in. That is the same agreement that we have with Cox and AT&T today, and that's what I'm recommending approval for tonight. The term of this agreement is 10 years. Staff currently has a 10-year proposal coming up with Cox. That renewal is due. Statute allows a term up to 25 years. However, with the ever-changing technology field, staff is only comfortable with a 10-year term. So if there are any questions, be happy to answer those at this time. City Attorney has reviewed and approved the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions? City
What's the
Manager, staff?
percentage of right-of-way that's currently utilized that?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Vice Mayor. Unfortunately, that's a question that was unanswered long before I came to the city of Guthrie, and we do not have an appropriate answer for you today. So,
Some of it.
Okay.
some of it.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Submit your votes.
I'll vote Saran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to move forward with the non-exclusive franchise agreement with Dobson for a term not to exceed 10 years, effective September 5th, 2023. Item number 4, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3395, amending Chapter 3, Animals of Guthrie City Code Ordinance, and creating Article number 10, Management of Cat Population. Councilman Ropp brought this forward. You want to start off that
Sure.
discussion?
I know everybody here is for Dan Kasich and his rezoning later on, so I'll try to make this quick. Just kidding. Let's do this. Instead of doing like a JFK, we're going to go to the moon speech, what I thought I would do is just kind of tell you the journey that I have kind of gone through with this as quick as I can, and then just let you know what I have discovered. So after I had become a newly elected councilman, I had met Lisa New, like many of us had, and she had told me about the cat problem that we have here in our community. And she taught me about TNR. And I said, well, what is TNR? And the science behind TNR is that when you remove a colony or a family of cats from a certain area, that it is only a matter of time, a short matter of time, before other cats will come right back into that spot. And it's kind of like that Greek fable where when you cut off the head, 2 more will grow up. And I said, okay, can we not rehome them? Can we, no, they're homing. And I'm like, pigeons? She's like, yeah. And I said, okay, I never heard that before. And you want to take them back? And it just sounded very far-fetched and like it wouldn't work. And I'm like, are you crazy? You know, and not that I thought she was a liar, but I'd never heard of this stuff before in a science. So a little time goes by, and I see that the entire state of Texas alleviates TNR from being illegal to then being legal statewide. And I call Lisa New, and I'm like, did you see this on Texas? She's like, yeah, I told you. And I was like, okay. And then I discover that Oklahoma City not only made it non-illegal or legal, but they have adopted the same ordinance citywide. And I heard straight from the superintendent of animals there that they were doing exactly what people who don't want this were doing. They were coming out to residential neighborhoods, commercial areas. They were trapping them, they were taking them, would adopt some out, but they'd euthanize them. And they said the problem was the cat population kept going up. They could not keep up with it. It was exhausting. They were ready to quit. So they adopted TNR, and to give you one example, Lake Hefner had hundreds of feral cats. Now there's 30. I then discovered that Edmond does this citywide. And then I thought, okay, well, that's Texas, that's Oklahoma City, that's Edmond. They have resources and money that we don't have. Maybe that's what the catch is, that this costs a lot of money, that it takes a lot of manpower to do. So then I did my research and found out that no, it is not the big cities. There are multiple municipalities of our same economic stature and our same size that does this. Multiple. And I chose just the ones that are probably within an hour of us to call and say, hey, how has this worked? And what are the unintended consequences? So first one I called was Blanchard. Blanchard's 8,000 people, we're 12,000, it's about the same area. I said, when did you do it? Tell me about it. They did it since September of 2022. And in that 1 year time frame, they've had a citywide 50% reduction in the amount of street cats that they've had in their entire city. Then I called Ponca City, 19,000 people. I said, how is it done with you? Our biggest regret is that we didn't do it earlier and that we'd stopped listening to the people who was, oh my gosh, you're going to bring them back. They did it since 2019. They said it's worked. Then I called Perkins. Same thing. It works. That's what we can tell you. Now, and I didn't really have a dog in the fight per se, so I asked our city manager, will you please call these municipalities and verify what I am saying? Have a city manager to city manager talk about the expenses and what it takes. There's got to be a caveat somewhere. Find me one municipality that says they've tried it and that it was a disaster. We can't find one. Stillwater does this. I want me to keep going? And my question to you is, if it doesn't work, why are they doing it? So then I thought, okay, let me call Lisa again. We're talking. You don't have to go through these other municipalities and hear it from them that it works. Here's what's happened in our own community. You can see before your very own eyes. Sonic on Division had 42. Now there's 2. Brahms had 12. Now there's 2. I remember when I first moved here a decade ago, we'd go through the drive-through, and you'd go through the back over there any time of day. You'd see them everywhere. Now you don't see any at all. Walmart had 19, now there's 3. The train depot, whoever owns that, irresponsibility, had 25. In 4 to 6 months, Lisa came to my place, and now there's 12. Mineral Wells had 10, now there's 4. The biggest one of all, though, is out on the highway at the hotel, at the Sleep Inn. There was 123 cats. Now there's 20. But that's just commercial, right? Well, it doesn't work in a house, doesn't work in a neighborhood. Well, think again. I didn't want to name off the names of the people's houses, so I have them and I have their addresses, but I'm not going to give them. One house had 32, now there's 12, did it in 1 year. Another house had 16, now there is 6. Again, I'm not just going to read out the numbers, but this works. And if anybody Googles anything in, you can find what you want to find. I can find articles saying that it does. You can find stuff that says that it doesn't. But at the end of the day, that is irrelevant. Okay, that's like arguing about whether or not a diet works, and you have all these experts arguing about it when I've already lost 100 pounds on the diet. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you about whether or not the moon exists underneath the moonlight. Okay, this works. We have a dozen municipalities I've spoken with that says it works. We have stuff in front of our very own eyes in our community that says it works. It works. But what about the catch, right? Like, what does this take? Does it take a lot of manpower? Does it take a lot of money? I asked that to the municipalities as well. And yeah, I mean, it costs money to spay and neuter animals. And Blanchard had volunteers. They had a lot of donations. Ponca City had the Humane Society helping them, helping do a lot of the legwork. Perkins has OSU. But we have our own Humane Society and our own OSU, and we have our own thing. We have Lisa New with Helping Community Paws and Claws. And they have agreed that whatever the uptick is in money, they will cover that cost. Okay. You know, when I ran to be on city council, my biggest complaint, what was that?
They will cover any increase in cost.
The increase in what we are spending now, which includes the driving around, trapping them, taking them to the facility, and then returning them, the increased cost that it would take to spay and neuter them, that incurred cost, that increase in cost, their organization is willing to take up that cost. That's what Blanchard has, that's what Ponca City has, that's what Perkins has, and that's what we will have. At this point, I mean, when I ran, I said we have got to stop being a reactive city and we've got to start being a proactive city. Okay, and with that right there, I will turn it over to if anybody wants to speak.
Okay. And again, a number of you have signed the forms, again, if you're just going to reiterate what the person in front of you has, just maybe pass the mic. And I'm just going to take these in the order that I got them. And I'm assuming all of these, well, no, wrong assumption. I was going to say, I'm assuming all of these live in Guthrie. Third one doesn't. Anyway, Bonnie Winslow. Bonnie Winslow? Okay.
Good evening. I have been before you all before on this issue, and I've also taken a journey with this, Adam. I've been to one of your meetings and actually had hoped to go to a couple other ones and just wasn't able to make it. So I want to introduce myself. I am a resident of Guthrie. I've lived here now about 12 years. My background is with the National Park Service. I was a park ranger with them for 22 years. And I like to say, being in the National Park Service, I love all animals. But I also know that in some situations, you've got to control the animal population. And sometimes you make hard decisions that you don't really like. Sometimes animals can become, both domestic and wild, they can become a nuisance animal. And I think that's really where I would say I would focus when I'm talking about. When I first brought up this issue to Tracy last year, it was over the issue of nuisance animals. And the other thing I do want to say is that I'm a cat owner. And when I was much younger, I let my cat run loose. And then I had a bobcat eat that cat. And then I took a different view about protecting my animals. Different people have views on that. That's why I did it. I keep my animals, I keep my cat inside. But I also make sure he's tagged, vaccinated, and neutered. That's very important. So here's what the two issues I really brought to Tracy a year ago. One is the free roaming cats. Honestly, I never saw them at Sonic or Walmart or at the hotel. I just see them around my neighborhood a lot. As you all know, I told you I'm a walker. I saw them everywhere all the time. Sometimes in big groups, sometimes just one here, one there. I also saw them coming into my yard and eating my animals, pooping in my gardens, peeing on things and actually killing plants. Didn't just see it in my yard, I saw it in other places as well. So the issues are, one, that we have too many free roaming cats. Some of them are feral and stray, like you talked about. Some of them are from irresponsible cat owners who either don't know, don't care, or honestly don't have the money or the time to go get them spayed or neutered. But the other issue is I talked about nuisance cats. Cats coming on personal property, private property, and doing damage, whether it was killing another animal or peeing and pooping everywhere. So I will tell you the problem I have with this ordinance. I do agree that over a long period of time, this thing can be effective. I've read some information about, but I've read some information about it. I think that in certain populations, as you say, I do question, Adam, one thing I think about running through my mind, if I start out with 50 cats, I now have only 20, I get the part they're not reproducing, but is it also possible that 30 of those cats died or went some other place or maybe became a nuisance cat? I mean, that's possible. We don't really know because we don't collar those cats. So we don't really follow that very carefully. Anyway, I agree that probably in the long run, this can be effective in some populations. The question I have is what happens in those large colonies when they run out of food and water, when nobody's feeding them? Well, they might starve to death or they might end up in my neighborhood. Now I've got a cat in my yard causing a problem, looking for food, eating my birds, frankly, killing my birds, maybe not even eating them. So I have a problem that in that situation where that cat can become a nuisance cat. You know, TNR does seem to apply to more colonies, large ones, and that's kind of what you're talking about, and also colonies in neighborhoods you talked about. It doesn't really get at my problem though, which is a nuisance cat coming on my property and destroying it. It doesn't quite get at that. I do also think it encourages irresponsible pet owners, because I think that now if I'm a pet owner and I have a pregnant cat or a bunch of kittens, I know I can go take them over here and someone's going to take care of them. They're going to feed them, they're going to water them, they're going to make sure that they're neutered. So that kind of, to me, breeds a responsibility. And then the final thing that kind of concerns me about all this is written permission from the property owner. Do we have permission to go on that property in the first place? And then do we have permission, written permission, to take those animals back to that property? We might not, but the ordinance doesn't really talk about that. I have a concern because I kind of feel like with this ordinance, if we don't have that kind of written permission, that to me means we're still liable. So is that my timer? I'm afraid it is.
I got you for 30 more seconds.
Okay, here's the thing. I do think the city needs to put resources into enforcing the law, into doing education, then doing more cat adoptions. I think we need to put money there. And I do think that TNR in some limited cases might be effective. But this particular resolution, I'm not comfortable with because it doesn't take care of my needs. So, thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, absolutely. When you first came to me last year, and I presented an ordinance to stop feeding wild cats. It was met with opposition here at the council, so it was tabled. That's what opened this whole can of worms that we're now standing in the middle of today. I had the same problems you had for over 20 years with a neighbor. As a result of this problem, she stopped feeding cats. My cat problem went away. So did the skunks, so did the possums, so did everything else that went with it. They disappeared. I don't know where they went, but I don't have this problem anymore. This past weekend, I took down the fence between she and I to repair it and paint it. And while we were talking there, she said, because she had put bricks under the fence to patch holes over all this time, she said, I don't have a skunk problem anymore. I didn't bother to point out why. I figured she was smart enough to figure it out. She's just an intelligent lady. But nonetheless, the problem's gone because there's no feeding stations there. Now, you and your neighbor both to the east of you, which Mrs. Summers, her and her husband, I suspect, I'm pretty sure Charlie was still alive then, when they built a 5-foot brick retaining wall around their backyard. 5 foot, where do you see that in Guthrie? That kind of expense to create a sanctuary for themselves, and in that put a bird bath and fountain, which has only become a watering hole for the cats that are running all over the place. Now, since then, you have a neighbor on the side that cats providing a cat farm continuously, which this is a human problem, don't get me wrong. I'm not totally against TNR. And the laws need to be strengthened to address the issue of cats being not spayed or neutered and the irresponsible cat owner, period. But you gotta have both. You can't just have one and not the other. And this proposed ordinance wipes out all responsibility and all laws and all power of the people to do what you're doing, to say, hey, I got a problem and I want it taken care of. That's what we pay animal control for. That's what the taxpayers expect. But it's only, I guess it only applies to dogs or anything but a cat. But when you called me, and like I said, I put up with it 20 years and never said a thing about it. I trapped a few cats a few times, probably on one hand in 20 years that I've set out a trap, and had animal control come and take care of it. It just irritates me that this group thinks that you have no word, that you don't have any say-so. And so you and Mrs. Summers have to continue to put up with this for 5 years, you say, 3 to 5 years, and this will all be wiped out. So in the meantime, there'll be no other cats, which is not true. As long as there's a food source and a water source, there'll be cats coming in, unspayed, unneutered. As you have seen, how long have you lived there? Mrs. Summers has been there a long time, so she can attest, although she won't come here, to the fact that their privacy has been perpetrated on. Their property has been perpetrated on. And when you called me that week, how many cats were trapped that same week at your house?
Well,
Or
over a
right-
period.
right there.
Over a period.
Well, there was
Well,
one week
over
that was
that week was
posted on
probably
animal
4,
control.
maybe 5.
There was 1 week that you sent me the link to animal control that had caught 10 or 12 cats
Yeah,
in that
something
area,
like
and one was called feral, one. So, the point is, regardless of all this, I got information out the wazoo on the diseases they carry and this and that. We can all argue that point. I'm sure you've all read it, at least those who are open-minded have. PETA, right here, protection of ethical treatment of animals. They're not against TNR, but they have very, very strict ways to make it humane. And I don't think these are being done that way. These are so strict, it would take an army of people on an everyday basis to handle a cat colony properly. But at the numbers you said, we'll be without cats in a month anyway. So at the reductions I just heard, our problem will be gone in a month, so why are we even here?
Let's try that.
Yeah, in a month. All these places you talked about.
I never
right
said
there.
a month.
Well, let
Well,
me,
you're down to 2 cats here
Tracy,
that
can
were
I,
100.
can I
so-
jump in a second, please?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not
Wait,
against.
you want to sit down? I won't want to hold you.
Well,
Thank you.
I might have a question for her as well.
Okay, great.
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay.
But I spent an inordinate, a ton of time this go-around on this issue,
me
on
too.
research, on the science, Honorable Rock, big time on the science, on immigration into colonies, on one colony splitting to 2 to 3 to 4. I've done a lot of research on it. And the thing about it is, again, I'm not against it. I think it, like, when you go out to Sonic and you go out to Walmart and you're throwing, there was 40 cats at Walmart, now there's 2, or whatever the number was. The science says those counts aren't accurate, because how are you measuring that? Are you sitting out there with video surveillance? I mean,
Well,
hold on, that's just a statement.
Oh,
Okay? And I want to impose that out there. Are you sitting with video surveillance, checking out all of these colonies? The next thing is, last time when we went through this, we ended up losing the podium. You remember that, Lisa? I brought it back. Okay, because one thing that was supposed to happen is that from the last meeting that Steve and I had, and we even suggested at one point for giving it a trial, nobody wanted that because it's a 5-year minimum program. That's what was said in the meeting. And you were gonna bring something back to us that was different from what we were hearing at that point. It didn't happen. So what I did is I left the existing, I made a motion to keep the existing ordinance in play. We didn't go after the TNR people at all on anything. Okay, so you were still able to do TNR 100%, just as you were doing it. You weren't being penalized for it. State of Texas legalized TNR. I have 9 offices in Texas, every major market. And most of them are because there was so many animal abandonment misdemeanor charges on the court books that it was ridiculous. Okay, so they approved it. They still don't know this. They don't know if it's going to be successful, but they did approve it to eliminate that. So, and we don't do, the state has an animal abandonment clause somewhere. The chief, you guys would probably know that. The chief Swager's not here, but they do. We don't enforce none of that on the TNR stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't work commercially, because it probably does. I mean, I'm assuming your 40 cats is 2. I know that you had 1 colony, you now have 3, Commissioner Rob. That's what you told me the other night. But forgetting that for a second, we've done nothing to penalize anybody in this room from doing this. Nothing. Okay, there's some tipped cats. Let me go there. I got to finish.
Do you have a question?
No, you can go ahead and sit down.
No, I have a question. Before you sit down, I have a question. You and I both had our second conversation in a year this week. And you were doing some investigation, and I was as well. And since we mentioned Texas, Dallas, Texas, the city's website blatantly states that all animals, including cats, must be confined at all times, restrained at all times in a fenced yard, in an enclosed pen or structure, or by handheld leash, if the custody of the owner, if the custody of the owner, unless the cat belongs to a trap, neuter, and release program. So any other thing outside of a TNR program, you have to keep your cat to yourself and confined on your own property. I think that's a great idea. But, and I pulled up Houston stuff too, because it was mentioned amongst somebody here, I don't know. What did you find out?
Well, I guess what I found really interesting is, and that sounds like just what you're saying, is if you've got a complaint about a nuisance cat at your house, City of Houston doesn't deal with that. And so I assume that they refer to the organization that does TNR there, which is called BARC.
B-A-R-C.
Yeah, B-A-R-C, BARC. I called them to talk to them because I was trying to understand the process as me as an individual owner, okay? Again, I get the part about large colonies. But me as an individual owner, I mean, how does that work? If I got a problem animal on my property, do they come and get it? And they said, oh no, we don't come out and trap anything. I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you trap it and you bring it to us. I'm like, okay. And then, then we'll spay and neuter it, and then we'll bring it back to you. And I'm like, well, but what do you mean? And I don't want this cat back. Well, if you come in here and you bring this cat, you're signing a statement saying. So that didn't really seem like an option, like a really good way of handling this. Again, large colonies, a little bit different, okay? You know, the thing, I guess, about this is, to me, personal ownership, in my situation, when I'm talking about personal ownership and people taking care of what they got. And if the people aren't doing that, then it's a problem. If they're dumping them somewhere and it's increasing a colony, that's a problem. This just doesn't take care of my needs.
Okay. All right, I'm going to respond to all of this stuff. Okay, this is called a straw man argument with Texas. I never said Texas adopted the ordinance. I simply said they alleviated the TNR from being legal to not illegal anymore, okay? So, yes, I agree. They're not going out and doing it, et cetera, et cetera. So I never made that argument, okay? And I also mentioned 9 other municipalities that
But you
did.
implied Texas was.
No, I did not.
Okay,
I did
that's what
not.
I
I said
heard
they
implication.
alleviated that. I did not say that they implied that as an ordinance.
The opportunity to give all of you, or those of you that signed up.
I still have a question for her before
If
she
you
leaves.
have a question for the specific.
I just haven't been able to get it in yet.
Okay, all right.
Bonnie, how many
Councilman
people in your, how many people are there in your neighborhood that support cats and stuff, and how many of them are just having cats as a problem? In other words, is one person all there is feeding cats, or are there several people feeding cats in your
Well,
area?
see, now this brings us up. Again, same thing happened in my neighborhood that happened at Tracy's. When this whole issue came up, that cat feeding area pretty much went away. So the issue I'm talking about now are just neighborhood cats. The problem with this ordinance, the way it's written, It includes neighborhood cats as community cats. So when you include it as a neighborhood cat, you put it in that definition, then all of a sudden it takes it out of the realm of the city of Guthrie and puts it in the realm of other just regular TNR. So
Okay.
that's part of the issue. Did I answer that?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
They got to go on with responding to her. I would like to respond to that, please, if I could.
Okay.
Okay. Again, just to recap, the Texas thing was a straw man that I never made. I said that that's what got my interest in calling Lisa Newback and then discovering that Oklahoma City, Edmond, Blanchard, Ponca City, on and on, actually adopted the ordinance. I never said Texas adopted that as a statewide ordinance. To answer your direct statement that the citizens do not have a right to request to have this taken care of, they absolutely do, and we are doing that. We are just doing an actual effective method that works.
If you're doing it, as you say, with no opposition from the city, then why are you here wanting us to change an ordinance to give you the power to be completely resolved of any liabilities or responsibilities for this act that you're carrying out? Why do you want to change an ordinance if you're doing it anyway? And it's
Well,
working.
okay, here's the answer for that. The way it is right now is that we do not have TNR as an ordinance. When you get a company like Paws and Claws that goes out, they spend the man-hours, the money, the time. They trap these colonies, they reduce it down because it works. Then the city comes, takes the remaining 2 or 3 are there that are warding off other cats from coming in, you take that away, and you started the process all over. Now you've got 15 or 20 cats that come in.
How do you know they're taking them away?
Have you trapped these 2 or 3 remaining cats at these dumpsters?
I got pictures of tipped cats in our shelters.
All right, so that's what I want to address. I called Tina last weekend. Well, this is,
Let's have the public have the opportunity first.
okay, well, it goes, a lot of people don't understand. These tip cats in the shelter are because there's a program where people that can't afford to spay and neuter cats, bring them, and part of that is it's a greatly reduced cost and they tip them.
That's
Well, guess
not all
what?
of
I
them.
called to adopt one a week ago, a little black one. Okay, but I couldn't adopt him because I had to take him and his brother because a little old lady who passed away, okay, who brought him to one of your programs and got clipped and neutered, okay, but died. And so the animals are in the shelter.
Yeah,
That
that's-
could be what you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
as well.
it could be, but
Okay,
that's,
but that's what I'm saying. We need to, when we
okay,
put
that's
out the
anecdotal.
information, let's put all the
That's
information out.
anecdotal. That's a one-time incident. All the other times is, we have a colony under control somewhere, and because we don't have it adopted as a citywide ordinance, animal control comes and they take them and they've ruined all the work we did. You gotta start all over in that section. You're gonna get
But-
40 again, and we gotta start over.
But
Okay,
if
so
we can,
what
but
is-
you're saying it's a one-time, you're saying it's a one-time incident. I don't know that. All I know is I tried to adopt this cat that was from a lady who passed away, who went to the tip and neuter deal.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
just a
so
one-time
how-
deal.
So just a fluke, a one-time deal?
Yeah.
So the issue, Lisa, you're next up, but, so the issue that I'm hearing, the issue that I'm hearing is that if the city didn't pick up any clipped cats, then
That would be,
that's
the first step.
that's the first issue that I'm hearing.
That's the
So if the city agreed not to do that, that would take that off of the table. That wouldn't be an issue then. We'd all be working,
And then, in that window of time, yes, we're working
okay,
together.
I'm just trying to
Yes,
compartmentalize this
You are
so we
correct.
get out of here by midnight.
Mr. Mayor, one more question.
You are correct.
You said that when this colony gets down to the last 2 cats, that the city comes out and traps those last 2 cats and you start over again. Well, when you say that colony, well, and all the proof is, in all the studies is that 3 to 5 years versus 12 to 16 years a household cat can live, 12 to 16 years. But in a colony, 3 to 5 years. Okay, that's what I've read. And you're saying that down to the last 2 cats, when they die, or when this is fixed, what happens when they die and they're no longer there to fend off the cats? You still have a feeding source, which is at the dumpster, and you still have more cats at the vacuum effect, so you
Correct.
start all over again.
Okay, this is a good,
Anyway.
this is a good point. This is a valid question. And this is what we're here to do. This is a valid, I'm not saying that with sarcasm, Greg. It's a valid question.
No, I'm not.
It's, like most things in life, things are not a one and punch and you're done. You don't change your oil once on your car and that's it. You have to keep doing it. When I was doing this, I was not going to put an ordinance in just because I like animals and because, I wanted to have this go. I went in and Googled, TNR does not work. And I tried to find as many articles as I could that were against it so I'd know what we're getting ourselves into. I read the PETA article that he's talking about. And PETA is not boots on the ground, and unless every animal's inside in your house, it's a travesty, okay? But there's another article that was done either by University of Florida or Florida State. And this is what Tracy's talking about. I read this entire article. And it was weird because the article was kind of against it, saying it doesn't work, but then at the end of its own article said it didn't work because they didn't do it right. And yes, you have to maintain, you have to keep up with it. You have to check back by. Are the 2 that are still there, are they still around? Oh, no, they're gone, and there's 4 more. I need to get these fixed and brought back after a few years, like that's what happens. Yes, you have to keep going back in and checking up, which is far more easier than just going in month after month. Oh, here's 30. Oh, we're going to trap them, kill them. Oh, there's 30. No, you do one trap of a colony of 30 or 40. It dwindles down to 2 or 3, and then you keep going back through, and you have to check up on it. You have to stay up on it. That is how it works.
And if
Nothing
you
is just a
recall,
one and punch.
That requires a 91% trapping. That requires a 91% rate of trapping.
Well, and it also,
Yeah, but doesn't take forever, Lisa.
and it also
It doesn't
requires
take forever.
accurate counting of the colony remaining.
But it can be done, and that's why all those municipalities I named off do it.
And what about the
Lisa,
vaccination?
Lisa,
They do that as well.
you're
So
the next
how-
up.
But they don't go
That's
out and
the-
get
You're the
catch
next
and
up.
boost.
Public comment.
Let's get Lisa up there. I got a question.
Yeah, Lisa, introduce yourself to the crowd, please.
My name is Lisa New. I'm founder of Helping Community Paws and Claws. I'm a spay and neuter program here in Logan County, but we do so much more. First, I would like to thank the good Lord above for giving me the passion to stand up for the street kitties. And my phone is blocked up here. And to you for considering this ordinance. For everybody here that that has shown up tonight to support the street kitties, to my husband who has put up with my mission. I'm here tonight once again to be the voice of the street kitties, to pass an ordinance to protect the tip-tiered kitties. The only humane way to coexist with the street cats is to implement the TNR program here in our city. I'm asking you to pass the ordinance to help with this overpopulation and protect the tip-tiered kitties here in our city. I will continue to trap so that every kitty in our city will sport a tipped ear. I will set up a TNR workshop to teach citizens to trap the kitties they are feeding. With my help, I will educate the people to fix their free roaming cats and to have their ear tipped so that animal control will know the difference. So many people have lost their cats to animal control, and they are tax-paying citizens too, just like the cat haters. I have offered to help and pay for it and never have asked the city for a penny. You support killing when there is a humane way to dealing with the issue. We have our first of many to come low-cost mobile clinic that come here. We were able to fix 16 cats and 16 dogs that were from our city. I didn't open it up to anybody else. I opened it up just to our city limits. I will continue to bring that. If this ordinance does not pass, unfortunately, I'll be pulling my program out of the city limits because I'm not wasting my time or the citizens of Guthrie's money. It breaks my heart for you to trap a cat and kill it or relocate it. I will continue to do my work in the county where I'm appreciated. There are so many things that we can improve on. With each other's help, we can make a difference. We both want the same thing. HCPC has fixed 127 pre-owned animals in this city. I personally have trapped 198 cats this year. 82 of those we had adopted out. So if I see a chance to pull a cat from a family that I know I can get adopted, I will do that. And one duck. Totaling 382 city animals, HCPC has made a better life for, totaling $38,996.18 this far, spent this year with the citizens that are here right now as donations. I've just mentioned 302 animals down to 77 in 10 different places, these places that Adam spoke of. I'm not going to go back over them.
And yes, Brian, I do set cameras out, and I feed every one of those cats every day. I feed 162 cats a day that I keep my eye on. And when I see a new one come into the colony or to the cat family, I trap them and I fix them. The punishment you're giving me for trapping and neutering cats here is that animal control picks them up and they kill them. And with your exact words, listen to me, nobody talked about this task meeting we talked about, but we're gonna bring it up because you yourself said,
Listen,
wait a minute, when that cat was in, I'll do my 5 minutes right here, I'll take it.
no pointing.
It's okay, I can take it.
I guess because he pointed to me, that kind of opened up the deal in our task meeting, he pointed at me a
So
lot,
now you're even.
so I think it's fair game,
Okay,
right?
let's just mellow it out.
So now you lost my train of thought.
No, I brought it up that the
You
cat
did,
took their
and what
cat
did you
in the.
say? I asked you, how come you're going straight to the slaughter or straight to the kill on those cats? And you specifically told me when those cats are in those traps, and you looked at them, they went,
No, I didn't. I said I said that's the issue that I have with cats, that they can't even get out of the trap.
No, wait a minute now. At our task meeting, you specifically said, the reason why we're passing the 3-day straight hold is because you deemed them vicious.
I've never talked about euthanizing the cat, not
Okay.
one in this entire
Okay.
community.
Okay, I'm
Just
gonna
read
keep
your
going.
thing, Lee.
Okay, I know funding is an issue that we have, and when the vet you are contracted in only charges $2 to euthanize a cat, to bring it in, then that seems a cheap solution to our cat issue. But I'm telling you, you're just killing cats. More will move in, it's called the vacuum effect. My offer is the HCPC will pay for the cats you trap, fix, and put back. Give our program a chance. What do you have to lose? We don't know what else to do but to pray for our animals in our city. And I'm praying that you do the right thing. You can throw all the studies at me that it doesn't work, and I'm telling you right now, I know for a fact that it works because I'm doing it. I've done just a little bit over 1,200 cats in the last, fixing to be 5 years in our city. Okay? Thank you for your consideration.
All right.
If you're doing this and have been doing this for years and having success at it, why are you standing here? Why aren't you just out there doing it? And why are you threatening to take it out of here if we don't comply with your wishes?
Because
to
I
pass an
can't
order?
handle you trapping the cats and killing them. Because you're going in behind me and ruining everything that I'm doing.
Is that true?
Be
Steve,
honest.
you're the head over this.
Recently, because you have somebody really, really good in our. We have somebody that's really, really good in there that I
Do you
agree
go
with.
into their cat colonies that she's named behind Walmart and everywhere else and trap their cats?
Cat trap.
Do you do?
No, we're talking about the innocent. No, like, not lately. Did you hear
Well,
that?
okay. As far as I know, you're out there doing your thing and nobody's stopping you, so
But
you're
that
gonna
may,
pull up and go.
that may be progress. That may be progress. I mean.
Oh, it is a lot of progress.
let's
There's
just say
somebody,
that
you
we're
have a
make-
front
we're
girl
making-
there that's great. I think you should hire her
Let's
because
say
she's
that
doing a
we're
great
making
job.
some
Yes.
progress here. You and I have talked many times over the last year or so. And you know, on the TNR program, it's the replace that where I have a challenge. And let's say my neighbor, Adam, has got feeding 10 cats. And I'm tired
I get it.
of defecating in my garden,
I get it.
of having to cover my grandkids' sandbox,
I get it.
of having concern that my daughter, who is quite allergic, and this is true, allergic to cats, can't sit down in the chairs out in the patio because the cats have been there. So Brian comes to me and says, well, we're going to fix this. We're going to come and trap those cats. I said, that's great. And then we're going to take them and we're going to get them fixed so that they can't reproduce. I said, well, that's good too. And then we're going to bring them back and put them in your yard. What?
Right.
You're going to put them back? Now, how is that fixing any of those problems that I have?
because it's all territorial problems. Once you get them fixed, they stay to their feeding stations. They don't go roam, they're over there marking their territory on your yard.
You
And
know,
I've offered, even Mrs. Winslow, I've offered, even you, I've said, I'll put you at the top of my list, because obviously you have a cat problem. So we would have already had your problems already taken care of if I would have done that in December when we had offered that.
so if they're fixed, they're not coming in my yard anymore.
I'm not saying that that's gonna be 100% true, but most of the time, when you fix a cat, it will stay close to their feeding stations. Whoever the cat lady is or the cat guy that's feeding them, they have no reason to roam.
Okay, because I've not read anything like that and I've done a fair amount of research on this too.
Okay, like I said, you can throw all the research you want, but
Yeah.
I'm boots on the ground, and I've done it, I know it works.
I hear you, and I
And I
salute
wanna
you.
help you,
I
and I
salute
wanna
you
help
for
you,
it.
because I also saw, I asked her, what did she do, to try to keep these, besides call the city and say they're a nuisance? Well, Starbucks gets coffee grounds, used coffee grounds, that keeps the kitties out, that's a deterrent. I've offered the sonogram tour where we can hook up the sonogram down. It's a noise thing that keeps the cats away from your house. But I don't think any of y'all have done that. You just want to call and be part of the problem, not part of the solution. And
That's
I'm
not
handing
true.
it to you on a platter for
That's not-
free.
That's not a true statement, Lisa.
What have you
I
tried to
resent
do?
that.
What have you tried to do to deter the cats?
Well,
I'm just curious.
Seriously, I want to, I have to address, I got to address something here real quick. Okay, first off, you've never asked me if I even like cats, okay? I happen to really like cats. I own cats.
I groomed your dog.
Okay.
I know you have a cat.
Okay,
You
I
just lost a cat.
have two.
Okay,
I just
I'm sorry, you
lost a
I
cat.
know
I
you
sat up
did.
at
I know
Steve
that.
Schwentz because I had to have him put down and bawled my eyes out like a little baby, and so did he. Okay? And so that's why I was looking to replace him with the tip deer cat.
That's great.
Okay, but not two of them. I was looking to replace only the
That's
one.
not my deal.
It's not your deal. But my question is this. Let's say that I lived in a residential neighborhood, which I don't, but if I did. And I said, hey, look, Lisa, there's 8 cats out here. Can you come trap them? So you take them, you trap them, you clip their ear, you neuter them. I wasn't feeding them. They were just living back there in the bush and stuff.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, looking to come in and get scraps wherever they can get it. When you bring those cats back, do you bring a feeding station with it?
If they do not have a feeding station, I will put them down, or not a place that we're gonna survive. I'm not gonna waste my money to fix them if they're not gonna, so, yes.
But you're gonna bring them back.
We would find a feeding station in a local spot where it's not gonna bother you, where they will go there.
But you said to me, okay, so this is good, Mike, this is where I'm going with this. It's trap, neuter, and return to this exact spot you trapped them at.
And I
So
move
that feeding station has to be there.
No, it doesn't. I move cats all the time with their
Okay,
feeding
so
stations.
could there be see, because I'm all for TNR when it's trap, neuter, and relocate.
We're not relocating.
Well, why not? If you're gonna put a feeding station out, why wouldn't
I would rather put
you?
them down because they have a homing device and wanna go home.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute.
You have
Again,
to lock kitties up for a long time for them to stay at their place that you relocate. We do relocate.
okay,
I'm fixing to relocate the kitties at Simone's because there's a mama kitty there that is very friendly. The babies are not. It'll be easier for me to relocate her because she's a nice mama.
I
So
agree.
when I relocate them, they'll stay because mom's there.
And I sat here racking my brains, how can we do a trap, neuter, and relocate?
We're
How
not
can we do
relocating.
something like
We're
that?
not gonna
You know,
relocate.
there's people on Chris's show before that said, Italy does it, they got a big barn type
Sanctuary?
thing,
So-
a sanctuary type thing. We got the elbow, does that work?
If
Nope,
you-
everybody shot that down because if you go to put them in the elbow, they're gonna creep back up to Gage's and get food out of Gage's dumpster, but if you're feeding them, are you feeding them over there, Adam?
I'm feeding.
You're not feeding the cats?
I'm feeding the cats.
At Adams?
I'm feeding the cats. I have 162 cats that I feed every day.
No,
So
I'm
it's
talking
just
about,
not-
I'm talking about it at the depot.
Yes.
Okay, so, again, the feed
And they look amazing. When we started, they were emaciated and they were sick and they were having babies and they were dying and now they're beautiful and they
I
look
get
great.
it, and I have, I've got a ton of empathy for
I don't have
that.
a problem with the
Okay,
feeding them,
but-
and they're going down. The population's going
Well,
down.
they went from 1 colony to 3.
No.
That's what I was told the other night.
No, that's not what I said at all.
That's exactly what you
No,
said.
no,
Because, listen, he has.
Eddie, you were in the meeting.
that's not what I said.
I'll defer to anybody else.
Let's,
on that.
Okay.
let's move on.
Well, but
I
Mike,
would like, we do have an expert here, Dr. Lisa's here. I would really love for you to talk to her,
And-
okay?
and-
And we have a citizens here that I actually
Yeah, she's on the website.
took care of her cats. In the beginning, I said 5 years. If you'll give me 2 years, if you'll even give me a year, I can show you the numbers that come down. Because those numbers that we're talking about there, his numbers come down in 4 months. Her numbers come down in, oh, not her numbers. Here. I bet she did. Mickey, is Mickey out there? There she is. So her calling, your cat family went down, what, in 4 months?
All 12 of them were returned.
In 23 at her place, and she's down to 10.
23 cats, and I now have 9. And I willingly fed the first one that showed up. We were new to Guthrie, and it was a beautiful black and white kitten, and he came with George, and I fed it. And, you know, there, and I made a mistake, because I guess he went to a lot of his breakfast.
It had babies.
Okay. All right. Lisa, you,
Beautiful program, you guys really need to get behind this and support it, because it works.
I have one more thing for Lisa before she goes, and the next person steps up, please.
Okay.
It won't be long. So, personally, if I had a cat issue, or I've got enough land that I might even take some that, and I wouldn't necessarily mind the feed station, okay? But that doesn't mean that he minds it. He doesn't mind it. Or that doesn't mean that she doesn't mind it, or anybody else in these neighborhoods. Okay, I'm surrounded by 40 acres, so I'm in a little different category on that.
That's why I
okay?
worked so hard to do the inside
I know that,
city.
hun. I do know that. Trust me, I know. 100% your effort. That's why I pushed this whole thing to do nothing last time, because the alternative was to enforce it. Okay, and we didn't do any of that. We just left it alone. I've even made suggestions to Grant, to Adam, that if animal control catches a tipped cat, that they call you and say, hey, we got a tipped cat over at 2020 Washington Street, and you can come get it and bring it back.
At every other city, they let them out. They don't even take a drive.
Or maybe that's what it is, they let them out, okay? One thing that this ordinance, first off, I can't believe that anybody's gonna pass this particular ordinance, okay? Because Section 3 allows me to go into the animal shelter and say, hey, look, I understand you got your tipped cats over here that some lady that passed away and you got them, but I'm claiming these are all my community cats, and you gotta release them all to me.
What's wrong with
And
that?
according to that ordinance, that's what it says.
What's wrong with that?
So now where am I taking them? So here's what I'm gonna do. So now I'm gonna take them in, I'm gonna clip their ears, I'm gonna neuter them. These are non-clipped cats. The ordinance will let you come in and take all of them, the way this thing's written.
It-
And it will.
that-
And so that's where a
technically,
big.
that's what the word says.
Okay, so
It
what
does.
what I know in my program is, you know, we are spay and neuter program, so I pay for people
I
to
know.
fix their animals. I've gone one step further, which I changed my protocol 2 years ago, because 90% of the pre-owned cats end up on the street in 15 years. Okay?
I know.
That's just a statistic, that's the truth.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So if I pay for it, I require, I don't care if you bottle-fed one,
I
I don't
know,
care
you
if
gotta
it's
tip it.
friendly, I don't care, it's not a feral cat, it's my beloved cat, I'm gonna tip its ear. That way, when it gets on the streets, it's fixed,
And it's
They
tipped.
know it's
And
fixed,
and everybody knows it.
and they leave them alone.
I agree 100% with that. But where I'm going with this is, you got a bunch of non-tipped cats in the animal shelter right now. I go in as part of this new proposal that we just passed, okay, and I say, these are my community cats. I've been trying to trap them, I couldn't, I'm glad you did, and I take those cats. Okay, now I bring them in and I have their ears tipped and I have them spayed or neutered. What do I do with them?
Oh, no, you took them, you tell me.
Exactly. This is where I got a big problem with that, because the ordinance is gonna allow you to clean up.
Nobody's gonna take them unless they want them.
Are you, really?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Most people know that you're not gonna be.
Then it does, then that verbiage doesn't need to be in there.
If that were totally true, I don't think we would have the problem in the first place, because
Exactly.
we wouldn't have dumping going on.
And that verbiage doesn't need to be in that ordinance then.
Anyway, you have an expert.
I do, I would like Dr. Lisa to come.
Yeah, she's on the list. She doesn't live in Guthrie, but I'm gonna allow it
Yeah, 'cause
because
she's
she has something to contribute.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak, because I'm not a citizen of Guthrie.
You have 5 minutes.
I understand that. I am a citizen of Stillwater and have been in Oklahoma all my life. While at Stillwater, I was on the faculty of the veterinary school, where I started the Operation Catnip Stillwater program. That transformed the way we teach our veterinary students surgery while benefiting the community and the animals therein. During that time, I became associated with the Association of Shelter Veterinarians, which is our national organization. I served 2 full terms, or 6 years, as a member of that board of directors. So I'm fairly knowledgeable on the subject of trap, neuter, return. Not only do we know that when done properly and targeted by organizations that are paying attention, working towards an end goal, it is effective. One can argue that when the cat's in the box, it's not going to have babies if we kill it. Well, it's not going to have babies if we spay or neuter it. But I implore you to consider the value of treating your community, its pets, and the people in it that love those animals humanely. We know there's a deep connection between the way we treat our animals and the way we treat each other. And there's many things that could be much more quickly, efficiently, and financially simple if we just went to a quick death solution. There are many things we consider, but in the case of these cats, their big crime is they don't have a very well-defined owner. That's really their main crime. And we do have many documented studies that show that nuisance behavior in our community cats diminishes when they're spayed and neutered because they basically get fat and happy. They're not trying to fight and breed. Their behavior changes. You hear much less howling and you have much less marking. And that's factual. So you are blessed with a community where your citizens actually care. And that kind of care goes past stray cats. It goes to neighbor. It goes to the way the elderly are cared for and the way children are cared for. There is a connection. And I would venture to say that with the support that I know this town has received from Operation Catnip in Stillwater with that program, that we have seen the effect in Stillwater. And I would argue that in your neighborhood, where it's neighborhood cats that are not fed from a community cat feeding station, these are cats that are kinda somebody's, kinda. And even the animal that's not touched by someone is often very much loved and cherished. And so, neighbor wars and what this has all generated are devastating to a community. They're not helping this community move forward in a positive direction. You have a great opportunity to take the advantage of your private entities along with your city's animal welfare services to better this community and to raise Guthrie up a notch because, there's some history here with this that you stand on the edge now of a chance to make it better. And I know that it's frustrating when your neighbor has an animal that's irritating you. And it might be a dog, it might be a cat. But this is an opportunity to manage this situation humanely.
The dogs have a leash law, and they're required to be, and they will stay in a fence.
Scant few communities have a leash law for cats because it really doesn't work.
Well, I'm not arguing that. You referred to the
because
dogs.
you don't have a leash law in this town. That's my understanding.
We have a leash law.
We do.
For cats? For
Oh,
cats?
Well, for dogs,
For
yes.
cats?
For dogs.
No,
I'm
not for
speaking about
cats.
You use
cats.
the dog as an example.
That's
can't
right,
imagine
but I'm
a
talking
cat
about
on
something like a barking dog at your neighbor's house.
It's a nuisance.
And they don't have to bark enough to get the cops to come take them away for it to make you crazy.
It's a nuisance animal, we can't call that in, and they will address it.
That's right. But you do not have a leash law for cats. And so when someone's cat is walking around like cats do, that is not illegal in your town.
When you feed your cats in Stillwater, at feeding stations at colonies,
Back to that issue of feeding stations.
Finish.
Would you like me to stop?
Go
No.
ahead. No, finish.
I got a
finish.
question
Back,
anyway.
back to the issue of feeding stations. A feeding station where you have a managed colony like behind where there's a main dumpster. You have a resource there called an open dumpster. Therein lies your problem. Because if it wasn't cats eating it, yes, it'd be
Raccoons
skunks,
or
raccoons, and all that.
I agree.
So maybe our problem is more of a waste problem than a cat problem. So let's get on top of that. We all
So
know
we'll
if
stop
we can
making
cut
these.
down on sources, we'll cut down on it. But meanwhile, we have these animals that exist. This is a domestic species we created. They're not just extra raccoons that walked up. And when it comes to the neighborhood and feeding, there's not feeding stations, it's the neighbors. It's the person that, you can't really feed the cat, but you see it's hungry, you feed it. Do we not want to nurture a community where people notice an animal or maybe a person's need and respond?
where these cats eat, do they also defecate there?
Well, they usually do it pretty close to where they do all that. That
Next
kind of
door
goes
in my
together.
yard, or my
Well,
fire.
if you don't like that, pass yourself a cat leash law. But you don't have that right now.
Regardless, it's a nuisance, it's on my property, I'm a taxpayer.
That's
I
right,
don't
sir.
deserve
And
it.
so you can decide if
deserve
you
it.
want to deal with this in a harsh way that causes
I want the
a
problem
lot of
solved.
anxiety and stress in people, in your
If
community.
you want to put a colony next door to me, the answer is no.
They're not talking about putting a colony next to yours.
Aren't you?
She's clearly
Anywhere-
said she thinks it's a bad idea to create a colony.
So the 10 cats
And the
that my
goal of all of
neighbor
this
was
is
feeding on a
not
daily
to
basis is not a
increase.
colony?
Let's not
Excuse
talk
me,
over
may
each
I
other.
finish?
Let's not
May
talk
I
over
finish
each
my
other.
words and then you can maybe say something about that? But
right, we'll start
when
Lisa.
the goal of this whole project is not to make more cats, to not
I
help
agree.
make sure we have lots of loose cats in our town.
I agree.
The goal is to reduce and end it. That's the goal.
I agree.
And so use it as your tool to educate let students learn from this. Let people learn. Promote humanity. Use it as opportunities. You have, and you know what? You do it, and funding will also fall to you when it's beneficial to humanity.
Well,
Thank you.
Doctor,
Whoa, I got
disagree.
you had a question.
It's more,
To the doctor.
well, yes, I did. We allow TNR. We don't prevent it. The only issue with the whole TNR program, and everybody sitting in here that there is today, is because occasionally they would trap a clipped-eared cat. And I am in agreement they should release it. Okay, they shouldn't bring it into the shelter, it should be released, because there was a big difference, because the lady that died, she had the clipped-eared cats. That should go to the shelter and be adopted out. We've had multiple adoption deals going on lately that were extremely successful for cats and kittens. So we're not preventing and penalizing TNR that everybody in this room thinks that we're doing. We are not, okay? What we're doing is we've just let it go on. And so I don't understand either, what is to gain here other than Tina letting a trapped cat go down on Washington Street that inadvertently got trapped because the neighbor had a nuisance of 3 or 4 cats out there that were fighting all the time, that weren't tipped, okay? Now, with that being said, those cats, when they get trapped and neutered, okay, we have a one-box-fits-all. We keep bringing up Sonic, and we keep bringing up the Depot, and we bring up Brahms, and we bring up Walmart, where we got all these video cameras that I've been all over and haven't found one, okay? But that doesn't mean they're not hidden somewhere where I can't see them, okay? But if you've got them, you see me on those cameras, because I'm looking for them, okay? And so, but at the end of the day, it's not a one-box-fits-all scenario. You don't want potentially 8 cats brought back to your backyard with a feeding station. That's all I'm talking about. The feeding station is where I can't and the you don't want it, I can't get my arms
I
around.
really don't think that that's the proposal at all.
That is the proposal.
No, that's not the proposal, is if cats are trapped from your neighborhood, that they're going to put a feeding station there, because they're there already because they're being fed.
Yeah, no, I just asked the question to Lisa. I said, if nobody's claiming these cats and you trap 6 or 8 cats and you. I didn't say in the woods, I said in the neighborhood.
Well,
Out somewhere where nobody, okay, in a neighborhood where nobody's claiming these cats, you trap them and you put them in the back of.
Someone's always claiming the cats in the neighborhood.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
But the bulk of my experience with targeted trap, neuter, return in Stillwater and then in the work I've done in other communities wasn't as much at those feeding station locations, but was much more with individual citizens that had just kind of gotten in a little deeper and deeper on feeding the stray cat that showed up, and it became more. Inevitably, there's older citizens. Often it's financially strapping them, but meanwhile, they're also very emotionally, it's emotionally very distressing to them to not care for those animals. They've grown to consider them as pets in a way. And so those are the cases where I've seen it super effective. And that's in that's in neighborhoods, that's not at Sonics and those places, that type of support and nurturing to help those citizens get on top of that population and help decrease it, increase the health, and it's better for all cats in the neighborhood, not just those by that.
And I get that, but let me give you a better example. I didn't realize I said, and we can go back and look at the video, out in the middle of the woods. Okay, so let's look at Mansur on an alley. And there's, let's say, 6 cats back there that nobody's claiming, and they're eating out of people's trash cans. That's what they're doing. They're eating the trash. I'm talking to you. And I'll do, I really am, kind of both of y'all. And so you trap those 6 cats that have been eaten out of the trash, because people just leave their trash lids open, or the wind blows it up off the poly cart, and they're in there eating the trash, and they just became accustomed to it, and that's what they're doing. Cats came from little Mary Beth that got given a kitten, and mom and dad moved on from a rent house there or something, left the cat behind. Cat got pregnant, there's the cats, okay? They're there. When you trap and neuter those cats that nobody's claimed in that alley behind a house that I own, you own, and 3 other people in here own, and you bring them back, do you bring a feeding station?
They have a feeding station, they're eating out of the trash.
So you're gonna just let them, okay, so you're gonna bring them back and just let them continue eating out of the poly carts that may or may not have the lids open?
If they are healthy,
Yes, that's right.
Really?
Yes, that's right. And
So you're just gonna release them with no
and
food?
she's also gonna look at that population of cats she's pulled in and determine, are any of these capable of a different life?
Well,
Is there any way to pull them out
okay,
of
so
it?
let me address this real quick. If that's what you're gonna do, how come you're putting 30 bowls out on the patio of the depot?
Because those are unhealthy. And Gage is
I'm
closed-
asking a question. She said to me she's gonna dump the cats out.
But that's my place, and that's why I'm telling you.
Okay, for his deal, Adam says, I said, how many cats you got here, Adam? He goes, I don't know.
3.
Well, you thought you might have 10, I think, 3 or 4, I don't remember what you said in the beginning, but not very many, right? Well, I know when I see a place like that, when somebody says they have 3, usually 13. When somebody says 20.
I agree, probably
30,
50, I agree.
okay? These cats were so sick, so emaciated, I really struggled on, do I go ahead and fix them and bring them back, or do I not? And he says, well, I said, do you feed them, Adam? He said, no, I don't feed them. He said, they eat out of the Gage's trash can. I said, fair enough, then something's wrong, because they're sick. There's 130 cats over there, eating out of that dumpster, and guess what? That's not enough food in that dumpster for them to eat, so they're literally starving to death.
There's 130 cats at the depot today eating out of the dumpster.
The Freightliner with that whole
That
area.
whole area over there is like 130 cats.
Oh, because you're talking about past the railroad tracks, the woods and all that
all
stuff.
that area.
Yeah, you're talking about a giant area there. I get it.
So I've been TNR in there now, I've moved them, top of my list, I
And-
have 200 on my list right now, and it's only me, I'm doing it all by myself. I've tracked 32 there so far, part of his
So,
got down
Thi-
to
this-
10 now.
this-
So now they're healthy, they're doing great, and they'll finally reduce.
and
They'll finally-
that's fine. So my big issue with this
You
whole,
wanna starve them to death.
I'm not gonna starve them to death. You just said if you're gonna dump these cats out and they don't.
Dump them, they're already there.
Steve, can I finish the thing real quick here, please?
You got a minute.
Okay. Well, show me where that's in the book, okay? 'Cause that ain't gonna happen. Okay, but at the end of the day, you just said that you're gonna take those 6 cats back that nobody's feeding in the alley, that's eating out of my poly cart and his poly cart and a couple other people's poly cart, if the wind blows the lid up, and you're gonna bring them back and leave them there with no feeding station. That's not humane.
If they're healthy.
I monitor those cats. They look amazing. I got before and after.
So I understand that. I'm talking about the 6 cats on Mansard. The people that I've talked to, that's what, okay. I've talked to probably 70, 80 different people. The ones that I've talked to.
Where are they?
I don't have them here. I'm talking about over the course of the last year since this whole thing came up. Okay? I'm not in opposition with you. Okay? You think I am, but I'm not. Okay? I've got a problem with the return of the cat with a feeding station in Steve's backyard that he didn't bargain for.
So I didn't put the feeding station in Steve's backyard. I put the feeding station down to keep the cats out of his backyard.
Okay. But the feeding station's still there.
And you keep the cats from going around begging for food.
And I thank you for that.
Can I?
Okay, doctor, thank you for that information.
Thank you.
And again, I want to remind, we've got a number of people here. I got to remind you, if you've got something additional, that's new and different than other presentations, then have at it. But otherwise, please consider giving your time.
Can I make a comment? And this goes to what Lisa and the doctor had to say. I have 36 hours of advanced statistical methodology, so I think I'm qualified to look at the research and make a comment on the research about this. And the research suggests that TNR works. And I'm going to tell you, unlike Brian, I love all of God's creatures. I just like some more than others, and I like some stuffed, right? I'm not a fan of cats. I wouldn't have them if it weren't for my family has them. The research suggests that this is the most effective way of reducing the cat population. And so if you don't want them coming into your backyard, trapping, killing, and that continual cycle just allows it to perpetuate itself, whereas the research suggests that if you take Lisa up on her offer, that you will reduce the amount of the cat population that you have. You're not solving your problem, Steve, of the cats coming into your backyard by trapping them, killing them, and allowing 30 more to move in. And, the simple fact of the matter is, I don't want to go 35 on Noble. I want to go 55. That's not the law, right? So I think we have to look at what is good public policy, and the research suggests that this is the best public policy at this point in time. Vice Mayor Emeritus Case sent me the study from the University of Florida, and I looked at that. That's what we call a meta-analysis, and the problem with the meta-analysis that they did is that they didn't have enough studies to look at. And second, they admitted, as Councilman Rott pointed out, that, yeah, it didn't work in these locations because they didn't do it effectively. And so I think one of the things that we can do here is public policy can change, and there has been a suggestion that we try this ordinance for 18 months, 12 months, 18 months, look at the data, allow Lisa to collect the data. She's got data now. And then we can reevaluate this. Things change. Science progresses. And so I think if you allow this, we can always revisit this issue. It's not a now and forever and ever, amen, decision on this issue.
You had your chance.
Yeah, no more.
No, it pertains to
you,
you.
and now you know what it is, Steve, it's about you.
Will you please give me your address or your problem is, and let me please move you to the top?
We're using that as a
That
hypothetical.
was hypothetical.
It's a hypothetical.
It
scenario.
wasn't hypothetical about, it wasn't
It's a
hypothetical
hypo-
about my daughter being highly allergic, but. the-
Okay, so
the-
maybe Mrs. Winslow, maybe I can go to her place and. or-
Well, you know, and Councilman Grant, I mean, you know, I don't know why we can't work together on this without this.
Well, we have been.
Without this, I mean, why can't we all be pulling in the same direction? The goal is to reduce the number of nuisance cats. I'll use nuisance, whatever your definition is. The goal is to reduce that. And I don't know why we can't be working more closely together as an organization, private organization, city organization, to achieve that. I think we would probably all in this room agree that the elephant in the room is the fact that we got assholes out there that are dumping animals, and that's where it ought to be.
And you're not passing this ordinance is going to continue to contribute to that problem.
Well, passing it's not going to contribute to that
That's not
problem
true.
either. It's true.
That,
Passing it's not going to do nothing from that little scumbag throwing the cat out.
who's talking?
Good point. Good point.
What did he say?
And we're offering to pay for it.
Even a better point.
If the city passes this ordinance, businesses will come forth and help support and pay for this spay neuter. You know, they'll get money, but the city has to pass the ordinance so that people know that we're doing something.
You're vested.
We're invested in it.
Sherry French? Sherry?
He's calling you out.
Let me tell you a story about my yard. No.
No.
Okay, you're next on the list. Have you got something additional to add to this dialogue?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm Sherry French. I own Oklahoma Mini Mill, and it has great electricity thanks to that guy. I blame my daughter. She's the one that came into town from Boston, caught some cats, introduced me to Lisa. I'm like, what do I do? So she set up a whole cage at Oklahoma Mini Mill, and this little kitty had kitties, and we found homes for the 3 kitties. We adopted the mama kitty because she's so sweet. And then there were other cats around, and so I never thought of them as a nuisance. I thought of them as going, and we caught them, and we found homes for them. And so we did that a few times, and so now it works together because we work at helping the very small, furry little human people that are around. And I just wanted to say that this is lovely, and nature is cruel, but we don't have to be. That's a quote from Temple Grandin. Okay, thank you.
Mickey Ward? Did I get that right?
Security.
Well, you had your 5 minutes.
She did have her phone.
Well, no, I had 1 minute.
She wants the rest of it.
Okay.
That was a powerful one.
Are you all right? Okay. Carrie O'Neill?
30 seconds, Lolly.
He's starting
I'm putting you down for that.
All right, the main thing here is if we don't pass something,
that lets Lisa and HCPC know that we are supporting her and her efforts aren't in vain, and she pulls out of here, then we have a real crisis. Because she's not only helping manage the community of cats, but she's also making sure they're healthy. When she traps them, they go to the vet, they get neutered, they get shots, they get wormed, and they're put out on the street in a healthier way. So I know that some people see them as a nuisance. There'll always be people that see that. But she's helping to make it better in the future, and we don't want to lose her and her program.
Sandy Bittner?
Hi. I moved to Guthrie 2 years ago from Edmond, and my next door neighbor in Edmond was a lady that a lot of you knew, I'm sure, Rosemary Novy, who was a teacher here in Guthrie for 40 years. And she was quite a fan of cats. I didn't realize exactly how much until she passed away unexpectedly and left me her cat colony of 69 cats. Now, the Cat Coalition in Edmond and Animal Control came and trapped them and had them spayed and neutered, and then brought back 39 of them and released them. And I've been feeding them ever since then for over 3.5 years, and I've been paying for it myself. That's how I actually met Lisa. I can tell you that over the 3.5 years I've had a cat colony, that they've reduced down to where they're about 12 to 13 now. I moved away 2 years ago, but I still provide all the food for them, health care for them, and neighbors who moved in there now feed the cats for me. But one thing I think we haven't said is that there's a problem here in Guthrie with cats disappearing. People's pet cats are disappearing out of their yards all the time. And I know because that happened to me. My two cats that I brought from the cat colony disappeared earlier this summer, and I looked frantically for them. One of them returned on her own, the other one didn't. So there is a big problem here with cats disappearing, and a lot of dogs as well. So I just wanted to bring that up. I do hope that you will give Lisa's program a chance, at least for a year to 18 months, to just see how it works. Because I've seen firsthand that it will work. And the cats that I'm still feeding are happy and healthy, and they haven't increased in population. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's the extent of the people that have signed up to speak. Anything else to add?
All I want to say is just I say this to Tracy, Councilman Tracy, and Bothroyd and Ms. Winslow. It seems like the pinpoint of the problem is that you feel like you have an issue and that we're simply saying, no, we're activists and you're going to deal with it and we're going to leave it there. And what I really want you to hear is that we agree with you that you have a right and to have this removed. And what we're just pleading with you is that we just know we found a way to get it removed for you quicker and effectively. Because if you come and just remove it, they're just going to come back. It's just going to be a different 10. That's all we're trying to say. You do have that right. Half the time I talk to Lisa, it's not her being upset with the city. It's her being mad and angry with the irresponsible pet owners. And everybody in here knows that. She gets in big arguments with them and say, you're the problem, you're the issue, you are what's causing the issues here. So we agree with you. We are just saying we have found an effective way to do it, and Blanchard has seen that. These other entire municipalities have seen that. And that's what I say to that specific item.
The only thing that I've heard where there isn't support is when you find a tipped cat that's being caught or is at the shelter. Other than that, I'm not hearing that the city and this council is against TNF. I'm not hearing that. Vice Mayor Gary suggests that we test this program. And I tend to agree with that, with the proviso, that we set up some ground rules between, Lisa, your group, Paws and Claws, and the city, as to how we are going to effectively do this, how we are going to work together to make this happen as a whether it's 12 months or whatever, as an effective test. And then, maybe most importantly, is how are we going to agree on how we measure what the outcome is? How do we measure the success or not success of the program? A lot of the examples are commercial sites. My concern is not, I don't want to exclude commercial sites. That's my timer. But I'm taking exception. I want to see the citizens. I want to see the citizens have their right to a clean and non-nuisance cat if they so desire. Okay. So that's where I would say that's where the measures, the primary measures, need to come. We all want to talk about reducing cats. I want to say 70% of the reduction should be in the residential area, not in the commercial, or that the residential numbers go down 70%. Not primary focus on the commercial, not to exclude the commercial, but my focus as mayor is on the residential. And if we could come to that kind of agreement, ground rules, how we're going to measure it, what we're going to do when we pick up a tip cat, those kinds of things, and set it up for a year, I think that works within what we have right now, Lisa. I think that works with what we have right now. Tell me why it doesn't.
If you remember right, when we had our little task meeting, and I asked them, this could all be gone away, because I asked when I got up from that task meeting, I said, if you'll just promise me you'll leave the tip to your kitties alone, I will walk out of here, you'll never see me again. And Officer Brock said, nope, they're a nuisance and they have to die.
Okay,
okay.
Not say they have to die.
Okay, could we, if we fixed that,
I would have already been gone.
if we fix that,
Then we don't need an ordinance.
if we fix that in the next few days with some dialogue, more dialogue, if we fix that tonight, okay? I think,
The ordinance
I'm just saying
protects
that I
Lisa's-
think if,
The ordinance is not. Section 3 of that ordinance is
Okay.
total trash.
Not a lot, and I'm just tired.
you're tired. I know you, I know you are. A number of people up here are pretty invested in this too. And we're not the enemy. We're not the enemy. How do we best work together to make this happen? And then how do we figure out how we measure the success of it? How do we measure the success of it? And that's and that plus, again, my caveat that I'd like to see some focus on the residential.
You would see the numbers down if you had enough people at the shelter that had been, for the last 3 years, been able to pull the intakes on the trapping and all the stuff that you're doing. But I know you're from staff, so I know that didn't get done. But the numbers are already down. I mean, they're already down by a lot. And those places I told you are just, I told you I did 1,200 cats in almost 5 years now. I only gave you an example of 338. Where do you think the rest of those cats come from?
Residential.
City Attorney Wheeler had a proposed amendment to Section 3 that might address some of these issues.
So Section 3 says community cat caregivers are empowered to reclaim impounded community cats without proof of ownership solely for the purpose of carrying out trap, neuter, return, and/or returning tip-tiered community cats to the original locations. And one of the parts that's come up in conversation is a fear that anybody could go to the shelter, take these cats, and return them. And one concern is if they're tip-tiered but they're not tracked, how do we know where they're coming back from? Once they're at the shelter, if there's not a record, how do we know that we're putting them back? But one clarification I had that Councilman Gary is talking about, I think if we could specify on there that those have to be tip-tier cats, not every cat at the shelter can be reclaimed by anybody at any time, I think that would help give a little clarity to this.
Well, the tip-tier kitties shouldn't be in the shelters, and that's gonna this ordinance is gonna eliminate that totally. And people have the right to go reclaim their cats on their 3-day stray hold, so I'm not sure what the problem is.
Well, but the tip-tier cats are gonna be at the shelter if little Miss Smith dies and she had tip-tier cats in the house.
They called me, animal control called me and said, Lisa, we have an issue here, some of your tip-tier kitties, they're friendly. I know what's friendly and what's not, you know, I mean, I did them all. So I know those cats that are inside being adopted are friendly cats that probably come from a friendly person, but the ones that are out in your kitty city that goes are not, or the ones that went straight to kill because they went.
I thought they were the ones that are going to the farmer's barn.
They
or
are,
something.
well,
Some
you're
are.
the one that said that, and I know that they are too, so leave the tip kitty, there shouldn't be any tip-tier kitties that are wild feral at the shelter. Okay?
No, there should be just the one from Mrs. Smith or somebody that passed away or something that.
Like I said, they contacted
kids.
me and told
Yeah.
me, don't freak out, and I did not freak out. That was very courteousy of them to call me and let me know that.
So isn't that working together within your program without doing this official?
We had, yeah, I mean, this just
Okay.
happened. And she didn't die, but anyway, so, but I was notified, and I was okay with that. That's great. They got in there, they've done really well, and got some adopted. I love that. That's great. It's working together. That's why I'm gonna tip every tip there, because they're not gonna be all feral cats that come through. That's
This'll-
why when you free roaming cats, they get into the pen with the tip. That's, I've always said, the only cats that's gonna be safe in Guthrie when we're done is the tip kitties. That's why I recommend everybody do it, because those cats are not gonna be nuisances anymore. They just happen to get trapped because I trap trained them. They're gonna be the first one in the trap. So
So-
let those kitties out and trap the ones that are tipped all you want.
Yeah, we're all in agreement with
I'm
that. So
gonna
just
move
curious-
approval of the ordinance with the provision that we strike section 3 of the ordinance, and I move to call the question.
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Is there any more discussion?
So let's clarify exactly what we're doing. We're striking the entirety of section 3.
Section 3.
And what about the portion of section 5?
How does that read, Ryan?
What is it, Brian?
I'm asking Billy, he
Oh.
talked about it the other night.
Well, so let's read 5.
I didn't have it with me.
Trap neuter return shall be the preferred disposition for impounded community cats. Animal control and the local shelter are authorized and encouraged to conduct trap neuter return and/or direct impounded community cats to a trap neuter program. So if you look at the language of that, there's not directing the city to do anything, it's saying it's the preferred mechanism. So the tease of that is limited, but it's telling, this council giving the direction that it is the preferred method.
So it's not a will, it's a shall?
It's a shall. I mean,
So
it's
what about, where does it in that, and I get your motion, Grant, trust me, I do, but where in that ordinance does it protect the Tracy Williams of the world that don't want the cats back?
I'm asking them to give us a time.
I understand that, when,
So
you,
that would protect right now.
no, I know that, and I'm talking about he lives at the Almancer, we'll use that hypothetical with the alley and the feed station that goes up and everything else, because the cats gotta eat, you can't just throw them out in the middle of the winter with no food. They're gonna get a feed station, you know that as well as I know. And so, how do we protect that person? I guess where I'm going with this is if we're gonna implement an official portion of this program, there's a couple of things that I wanna see. I wanna see, first off, this ordinance looked at a lot stronger than what it's being looked at, okay? Because there's flaws all over it. And then secondary, the funding side of it. I want to look at where, how's the funding gonna look? Because we don't, as a city, and it's not my doing, I didn't do this, but ever since I've been on, and actually way before that, we don't fund nonprofits, okay? And,
We're not funding.
No, I'm not saying you didn't. I'm not saying you did ask for funding, okay? I'm not saying you did. No, I'm not saying you did.
There's no funding, you'd have to have a budget amendment.
I get it, okay? But where I'm going with it is if the city's gonna take on this and show full support, there's gonna be a cost associated with it, okay? And there's just gonna be. And that's not a bad, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, and all I'm saying is if we're gonna pass an official TNR program then we're not ready with this ordinance. Okay, it needs to be, this ordinance needs to be clarified, a lot more than what it is.
Lisa, in my, and all of you, in my mind, what I heard you say that, that your pausing clause would pay the city for any additional cost that they're not, that they presently are not, if we did TNR, that you would assume additional cost that the city would take on more runs to Stillwater or wherever.
I'm not paying the city anything. We will have.
You will
my
pay
own
for those,
account
okay.
Where you would take them to the
It would be
bank.
no cost to the city.
Right.
No cost to the city. And I think that's laudatory. I think what, in my mind anyway, what we need to do is know what that cost is. Because, to be honest with you, you are the captain of that ship, pausing clause. And if you got in a car accident tomorrow,
So put that in there. If I die,
yeah, just hear me out. Just hear me out.
Take the cats with you.
I think we need to know exactly what that financial responsibility is. And it may, you know, let's just say, let's say the program is successful, and 2 years from now, pausing clause goes away, you go away for some reason or whatever, and then it's successful, guess what? You all, the citizens, will expect that the city will pick that up. I think we just need to know what that financial potential responsibility is. I don't think that's, I tend to agree with Brian that there seems to be a fair number of questions that still need to be answered.
I'm not doing another fast meeting with you.
I have a point of order. I made a motion, and
Yeah.
the motion asked to call the question. However, since you asked, I believe that Councilman Robb has those figures that he asked Lisa for, and those figures were
Right.
shared.
Yeah.
That's for what you've picked up. We don't have that information on the city side, unfortunately.
So, well, let me ask you this, Lisa, because it seems like this is the closest we've ever been to trying to get something handled and worked out officially. Okay? Even though unofficially, we've already done it. And we have, other than these few tip-tiered cats. So what is the harm in putting this ordinance to a further meeting to get with legal? So no?
I think we need to amend
So-
it tonight.
Just a minute.
Well, yeah, but that's not what I'm bringing up here. What I'm bringing up is to sit down and have a meeting on this where we're engaging our city attorney, we're engaging our city manager, which, by the way, neither one of these were consulted on this ordinance on the front end. That's just another issue. I didn't know if you knew that or not, Steve.
Can we ask the city manager from your perspective, do you mind?
I'm here,
putting you on the spot.
yeah, you definitely are.
Big time, big time.
Your perspective.
So, you're not going to like this position. However, I will tell you, I'm here to provide facts, answer questions, allow the staff to interject. At this point, I'm not going to share. It's not my job to have opinions. It's my job to do what everybody tells me to do. So, thank you.
Okay, we do have a call to the question. Who's speaking?
Can Adam provide the amount that Lisa's telling him how much it costs?
He has provided it to me. I don't know. if
Yeah,
he's
it's
provided
real
it to
simple.
them.
It's just, we took the average amount of animals that she TNRs per year. I added about 25% more to it just for as a buffer. And then it just determines on which veterinarian service you go to. Because, you know, if you go to Stillwater, it's like $10 an animal. But if you do it here, it could be $75 or $100. So it varies on where you go. But it's anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000.
48,000.
Or $48,000. I had my 4 wrong, right. So that's what you're looking at if Lisa and her community just goes away and we incur that
And you're in
cost.
contract with your vet for $35 right now, currently, and $20 for rabies, with $2 for
Yeah.
euthanize. So there's your numbers there. That's cheaper than I can get it anywhere, and I'm willing to pay for it. So it's like, I don't know what the problem is. It's $10 if you put up the shelter, if you used to be signed up with the OSU shelter, but includes rabies and all the vaccinations.
So to me, that's relatively low. I mean, really low. I mean, we'll vote on something in the next one to have some company remeasure something out at the park for $100,000 or something, you know, I mean, it's.
You know. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, last second opportunity, folks?
I think the only discussion is I don't see an issue with going through this ordinance in a more succinct manner with our legal and our staff involved in it, which haven't been, and getting down to where we're protecting, again, I don't have a dog in the hunt, because I don't have an issue with it, but protecting the guy or gal that doesn't want these cats back, okay, because there are some that don't.
They're just gonna get them back anyways, and it's gonna be 10 different
Okay,
ones.
well, that's always the answer.
Because that's the truth.
I say that's always the answer.
Okay.
Mayor,
I will,
Mayor, just a
yes,
quick
Eddie?
point of clarification. We talked about striking paragraph 3 or section 3. Are we referring to paragraph 3 of section 2, article 10, which is what you've read off, but that's not section 3 of the ordinance? I just want clarification.
Section 3 of Article
10, paragraph 3, section 2, article 10.
Yeah.
Anything on paragraph 5? Because that, I heard that mentioned. I need clarification on that, please.
That was the trap, neuter, return shall be preferred disposition of impounded community cats. Animal control and local shelter are authorized and encouraged to conduct trap, neuter, return, and to direct impound community cats to a trap, neuter, return program.
And it was permissive, not mandatory.
It was not mandated, not mandatory. Okay.
So we're leaving that in?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Preferred,
Don't
not.
understand why she's gonna leave.
That's practice.
Well, it's a threat.
Do it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No other discussion? Submit your votes.
Mayor?
I know. It's really difficult.
We're already doing everything they want done.
Give it a chance. Just give it a chance.
By a vote of 4-3, the amendment does not
That's
pass.
a really sad day. Yeah.
Now, again, we're not the enemy.
Thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you so much. I can't believe you do this. Thank you guys.
I don't like to be blackmailed.
Yeah, bring 300 more people.
I hope you're all voted out. What's up?
That's what we should have done. I tried to do that.
What's the blackmail? Wow.
But I'm walking, I'm taking my football and going home if I don't get my way. Lisa?
I know.
That is not.
And what I tried to put forward was a reworking of the whole ordinance to make everybody happy. Nobody wanted it. They didn't want it.
We can do that. We
Okay.
Can we recess the meeting or something? We're in the middle.
We're in the middle of the meeting. We have
I would just like to know, the biggest problem in this is that the owners are throwing their animals out, they don't carry them.
I know, it's terrible.
That's the elephant in the room. That's what it needs to be. If we can solve that, the problem is over. Yes, I understand. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Item number 5, I open a public hearing for the 2024 budget for general funds and miscellaneous funds. Eddie?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I couldn't hear you, but I assume we're on item 5.
I've opened public hearing
Yes, sir.
for the 2024 budget for general fund and miscellaneous funds.
Yes, sir. This is the same item as GPWA. Just as a reminder, this was published in the Guthrie Newsletter on August 30th. This resolution will allow the city manager to submit grant applications prior to approval of the council. However, the council has final approval for acceptance and/or commitment of local funds. We have, the only change between the draft budget and the final budget is we have committed $50,000 to general fund stabilization, which you heard me speak about. I want to establish intentional contributions to the stabilization fund. Rather than borrowing from the stabilization fund, let's build that fund up, let's spend the other funds, and make progress that we need to make. So at this point, recommend approval.
All right. Is there any questions from the general public? Actually, isn't an approval, that's the next one.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Close the public hearing on the 2024 budget. Item number 6, discussion possible action to resolution number 2023-35, adopting the fiscal year 2024 budget. You're recommending approval.
Recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
Oh, he's gone.
Adams. That's left. Unanimous approval from those present to approve resolution 2023-35, adopting the fiscal year 24 budget. Item number 7, possible action to authorize city staff to enter into contract to provide medical, dental, and vision contract with Standard Life for city employees for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? We've already had.
It was number 6. You said number 7.
Oh,
That was 7.
It was number 7.
That's the contract for the life.
yeah, item number 7. Okay. Now we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval to authorize city staff to enter into contract for medical, dental, and vision and life insurance for city employees for fiscal year 2024. Item number 8, discussion and possible action to adopt ordinance number 3396, request to rezone from C2 to
I can handle it if you want, Mr. Mayor.
C2, okay, general commercial to, well, it says to C2, general commercial.
Yeah, flip-flop. It's a general commercial planned unit development, and we're going back to C2. It was the property that's down the street here on First Street. They got a PUD for a 3-unit residential development. Things have changed for them, and they no longer want to move forth. So because the property has a development plan tied to it, we have to rezone it back to C2, so then it basically opens it up without a specific development plan. The Planning Commission had recommended approval 5-0, and there was no public opposition.
Okay, very good. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Is that the one we talked about a
Is
month
there a
ago?
second?
Second.
About a month
Yes.
ago.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to adopt ordinance number 3396, rezoning C2 PUD to C2 general commercial, the property located at 424 South First Street.
So on stuff like that, when we initially take it from a C2 and move it to a multi-unit zoning and change the zoning, what's their fee for us to do that?
$250
Okay, so that's all they lost on this deal?
for the most part, yeah. I mean, from
But
their
250
end.
each
Yeah.
way, because they gotta
Yeah,
do
right.
250, so it costs
Yeah.
them 500 to go to it, have us do it, and then put it back.
Yeah, from application side, yep.
Okay, item number 9, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3397, rezoning from R1 to R2, property located at 1623 South Harrison.
West Harrison.
I'm sorry, West Harrison. Thank you.
West. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a property that has an existing single-family residence on it. The applicant is looking to put an accessory dwelling unit on it, and so to do so, we have to rezone it to R2, so it'll allow for multiple unit or more than one unit. The Planning Commission had recommended 5-0 approval of it, and there was some public, but it was more or less asking questions in that, but there wasn't specific opposition.
All right,
So moved.
Second.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval to adopt ordinance number 3397, rezoning R1 to R2, property at 1623 West Harrison. Item number 10, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3398, rezoning R1 to R2, property located at 214 North Cedar.
Yes, same scenario. There's an existing single-family home. The owner wants to put an accessory dwelling unit on the property, so we're rezoning it to R2 to allow for more than one unit. And again, the Planning Commission recommended 5-0, and there was no public opposition.
Okay, all right.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? I'll second it. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve ordinance number 3398, rezoning from R1 to R2, property located at 214 North Cedar. Item number 11, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3399, rezoning from R1 to R2, property located at 1802 West Logan.
Same song, second verse.
What?
Same song as the last one?
Yeah, the only difference is this one is a much larger property, but they're going to break it up into, I think, 5 or 6 lots to have a duplex on each lot. If you're familiar with the property, there was a church there many years ago. It burned down. It sat vacant for many years, so excited about the fact that we'll see some redevelopment there. And once again, the Planning Commission did recommend 5-0 of the application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval for ordinance number 3399, rezoning R1 to R2, property at 1802 West Logan. Item number 12, discussion possible action to reappoint Scott Weiskell and John Donaso and appoint Robert Kenworthy to the Guthrie Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for a 3-year term through August 31st of 2026. These are applications go to the Housing Authority. They make a recommendation through me to us. We have to approve it. I've talked to the administrator at the board and very happy with Weiskell and Donaso.
So moved.
Second.
And so on and so forth. Have a motion and a second.
Sorry, I didn't mean to-
Any other discussion? That's fine.
But I get where you're
Yeah,
going.
okay. Submit your votes, folks.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval to reappoint Scott Weiskell, John Donaso, and to appoint Robert Kenworthy for a 3-year term on the Guthrie Housing Authority Board of Commissioners through August 31st, 2026. Item number 13, discussion possible action to approve lease of a 2019 Ford Mustang from Integrity Foundation for a 1-year term, may be extended for 4 for $1 a year.
Mayor and council, before Sergeant Gibbs gets started, just to give him the platform here, this is an opportunity. It came before not only me, but also Mr. Alsop for consideration. I felt like at this point, we had a couple of conversations that needed to come to the council for either approval or denial. Sergeant Gibbs and also Lieutenant Mize are here. Chief Swigert is out with a medical issue at this time. So if you have any questions, I think Sergeant Gibbs does a pretty good job with his presentation. However, Lieutenant Mize can speak to any administrative needs as well.
Convertible?
TT. But I just want to tell you that you guys are appreciated. Thank you, and I'm going to be absolutely brief. So with that, we are excited to bring this opportunity before you. Essentially, this nonprofit learned that we had developed a really kind of an innovative way to be able to make our kids safer online from predators and traffickers, along with recovering children faster during runaways and abductions. So the program leverages the draw of a car like this at events, gets people over to us, gets them talking to us, and then we get to run those kiddos with parent approval through that. I'll save you all of the ins and outs of it, but just super quick, kids get a load of fun, but they get to get close to us too. And they learn, hey, we care about you. You know what? We want the best for you. We're not out there trying to
So you get the kids in the car?
Yeah, we put kids in the car. We'll do lots of different things. In fact, they yes. So I'm super passionate about it, so I'm not going to take you down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Also parents get an immediate employable safety strategies. It's going to help them keep their kids safe because they need to be able to do that through a relationship. So checking phones, etc. Some knowledge and peace of mind, and then of course the city. We get a fully functioning patrol vehicle, helps to alleviate some of our fleet issues, and we can also use it for events, parades, and other things like that. And I'll definitely answer any questions, but like I said, try to be super simple.
So it's a fully outfitted Mustang, police outfit.
Sounds
Lights
awesome.
and all.
Okay.
Sounds really, the whole idea sounds awesome.
Hang on. So the city would be paying to upfit the vehicle. So we would be paying $1 to lease the car, which the foundation is Sergeant Gibbs. It's kind of one and the same. So we would pay $1 to the foundation to lease the vehicle, and then
$85,000 to upfit it.
not under this city manager. Up to $15,000 of their next fiscal year budget to upfit this unit.
And
So-
we keep it for 4 more years after that if we want.
$1 a year.
I
Right.
make the motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to say something. I understand what you're saying. I know you a little bit about you. I appreciate your heart in this, and your compassion and your passion for it. But I'd rather hear this vehicle not being touted as a fully functional police vehicle that takes pressure off the use of the purpose of other vehicles. I'd rather you not be, the parades, the school, that's all great, but I'd rather, whether you happen to be in it at the time and you have to use it for that purpose, I don't think it should come out as you have a fully functional police vehicle that takes the pressure off of needing of that vehicle.
We shouldn't designate it for that, in other words, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have
I think it's a good idea.
a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to lease that 2019 Ford Mustang for 1 year
Thanks,
with a
Anthony.
possible extension of 4 additional years for $1 a year. Item number 14, discussion possible action to approve acceptance of a $3,000 grant from Best Friends Animal Society.
Okay, this was a random questionnaire that animal control staff found, up to $5,000 grant. They applied, they got $3,000.
Awesome.
So that money will be used for food, supplies, improvements in the shelter, whatever.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to accept the $3,000 grant from Best Friends Animal Society. Item number 15, discussion possible action on approving Chief of Police to notify the Oklahoma Attorney General's Office of Opioid Abatement Grant application.
Basically, if you approve this, then the chief will notify them that somebody from the city will be applying for this grant.
So this is just council's
you can
approval to
apply.
go ahead with the
Yes.
application.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve the chief to notify the Oklahoma Attorney Generals of that grant application. Item number 16, city manager report.
Yes, Mayor and Council, last weekend was the final Red Brick Nights of the season. Despite there being an evening OSU game, we did have a decent crowd come out. We had a great run this summer season with Red Brick Nights. Great work on all the partners, both staff and community. In addition to that, this weekend, we have the Downtown Downbeat, which is one of the artists from Red Brick Nights will be there with some jazz music at the shops Saturday evening. Last week, Monday and Tuesday, Justin, Shonda, and myself attended an economic development conference in Oklahoma City. During that time, we were able to make great contacts and learn some great info in reference to film, Department of Commerce, economic incentives, industrial park development, et cetera. It was the first conference for economic development known as Select Oklahoma. Great conference, well worth the time and the commitment that we spent there. Coming up this weekend, you've got the Logan County Fair. In addition to that, you've got the rodeo at the rodeo arena. There's also a car show at Mineral Wells. Something to keep on your radar, next Tuesday, we have a special workshop scheduled to discuss the pool at Highland Park. Staff has been working pretty diligently to make that a productive meeting for us. 6 o'clock, we'd like to meet at the park and take you through the pool, the bathhouse, and the chemical house. Yes, sir.
Should we bring our swimsuits and dive into the concrete?
Next Tuesday, next Tuesday, 6 p.m. And then after that, we will come to council chambers where we'll meet both with John Wolf, Bill Myers, Dr. Simpson will be here as well to discuss potential partnerships. In the meantime, Tenny has reached out to several pool contractors, people who have actually built pools and can tell us how it works. We've had some good success there. I've reached out to the city manager, City of Cushing, and City of Kingfisher, both to coordinate a meeting to discuss indoor pools. Hope to do that between now and next Tuesday. So, in addition to that, the pumps out at the Cottonwood, we're hoping both are still out. We're hoping to have one of them in operation, Tenny, by the end of the week. Okay. We did have some conversation online, which resulted in a news reporter in City Hall this morning in regards to water quality issues. Just so everybody knows, in the last 3 weeks, we've received 5 phone calls in regards to water quality. That is minimal in comparison to a day when we are truly having a water quality issue. My recommendation to the community, when we have those issues, when you turn on your bathtub faucet and the water is brown for whatever the reason may be, Public Works has to know about it. If you report it, there are things we can do. We can flush the hydrants. We can work through some of that. The reality is, we have one of the oldest water distribution systems for a municipality in the state. We're working to fix that, but again, we can't undo a century of, not to say neglect, but a century of not replacing water lines overnight. That's all I have.
Okay.
Good job.
Item number 17, comments from City Council. Vice Mayor Geary.
I gave a lecture today at Cottage Park to that neighborhood association, and there were a number of citizens that had a couple of concerns, one of which was the speed limit increasing on Noble right before Academy, and a potential hazard that one of the citizens experienced there, where the cars increased the speed, and right before that intersection, some almost collisions as a result of that. And so I was going to ask if we could look at that and see if we could delay the increase in speed from 35 to 45 until after Academy Road, if that's something that we can address. Also, the mowing on the sides of the road and the stop sign at Academy right before the hospital. I'm also not sure why that is a 3-way stop instead of a 4-way stop, because apparently there have been a number of almost collisions there as the result of people traveling northbound on Academy, increasing speed, and right at the hospital. So those were the two things that they brought up and asked if I would bring them up, and so I am. So that's it.
I can answer that
Right,
one.
yeah, right. There's a three-way stop as you turn from Noble on Academy, and then that street right before, yeah. It's a
I'll
three-way
answer that
stop.
for you. That's for the ambulance. Because when the ambulance is in a hurry and they're coming up that road, if they have to, they're not gonna stop anyway, but they're gonna go around that corner, not slow down. It's to try to get people to slow down and pay attention to what's going on. And I know what they do. They float that stop sign. When I used to carry mail, I'd almost get run over every time. So yeah, it's bad out there, but I don't think putting another stop sign is gonna fix any of that.
Well,
Take a look at it. Take a look at that. Okay,
You guys.
anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Councilman Rao.
No, I think I probably said enough tonight. I would just like to say I appreciate everybody, I'm talking to council, for listening to everybody. And as far as how the session goes, I can't ask for more from my fellow councilmen, so I appreciate that. The ones who voted no on it, I don't think you hate animals or anything like that. And, yeah, so, thank you.
Councilman Guthrie.
We've got a lot to do in the future, and a lot of work that we're gonna have to do together and should do together, and hopefully we can, I know this was a passionate issue, the whole cat thing, and it was. Steve and I have been through it 8-9 months ago, and I hope that Lisa continues on what she was doing, and that's all I can say.
Councilman Williams.
No comment.
Councilman Case.
I don't have anything.
Okay. We've got Farmers Market, is it Farmers Market Friday
Yes,
coming up?
I believe you skipped Jeff Taylor.
Taylor doesn't get to talk tonight.
Hey, you just go down the road.
Thank you, staff. Appreciate it, Dan. You kept everything under 3 minutes.
Okay, Councilman Taylor.
Everybody gets
Councilman
skipped every
Taylor.
I'm done.
I'm sorry.
To answer your,
You don't have a list?
I was marking it off. I don't know what happened there, anyway.
to answer your question, Mayor, the first farmer's market was last Friday. It was very well attended. I think we've got a good thing going on there. Tammy Riggs and the team, they've worked diligently on that, and you'll have it every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m.
Okay, great. All right. Very
I
good.
do actually have one question.
Okay.
Officer Gibbs, have you got to put that Sea-Doo in the water yet? You actually had a boat, enough water on the ramp to get it in there? Yes, sir. Okay, great.
Do we get to come play with it?
No, it's a big time.
Okay, number 18, proposal to go into executive session for purposes of discussing our actual routine annual, discussing the police union contract, the firefighters union contract, and the routine annual evaluation and contract with city manager, city clerk, treasurer, city judge, alternate judge, and city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Votes? Submit them.
I knew that was your candy. You have to say,
Yeah, I told you.
you might have saved.
Yeah, but was laughing at me when I came in here with these candy bars.
I voted.
And I told you that we.
No, Case, vote.
Vote again, please. Okay.
By a vote of 6-1, we will move into executive session.
Ready to go home, aren't you? Yes, I am.
executive session in the regular session.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to move from executive session into regular session. Item number 20, consider action regarding negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the negotiations concerning the employees and representatives of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 105.
Second.
Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval to approve the negotiations as determined with the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 105. Item number 21, consider action regarding negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, local number 2145.
I move approval of the agreement between the employees and representatives of the International Association of Firefighters, local number 2145.
Second.
Any discussion? Switch your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
Unanimous approval to approve the negotiations as identified with the International Association of Firefighters, local number 2145. Item number 22, action regarding the employment of city manager.
I move approval of continuing the employment of the city manager as discussed.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Switch your votes.
Fast. Thanks, Jim. He's gonna leave right at the door.
Unanimous approval then to continue the employment of city manager as identified. 23, consider action of employment of city clerk treasurer.
I move approval of the continued employment of the city clerk treasurer as outlined.
Second.
A motion and a second quickly. Any discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to continue on the employment of the city clerk / treasurer as identified in contract. Item number 24.
I move approval of retaining the city judge, David Hood, as outlined.
Second.
And the alternate judge.
I think you
and the
need two,
appointment.
well, I think you probably need two motions on
You
that.
should separate those.
Okay, all right, we'll separate them, okay? So, again, the motion
City judge.
for the continued employment of the city judge, David Hood. Was there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, okay? Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to continue the employment with the city judge,
See,
David
we just
Hood.
love you, David.
I move approval.
24A.
Condolences.
I move
Jen
approval
Senior.
of the appointment of Julie Kelly as the alternate city judge.
Second.
Motion and a second. Submit your votes.
I'll vote Fran.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then for the appointment of alternate judge Julie Kelly.
I move approval of retaining the city attorney, Billy Wheeler, as outlined in the memorandum of understanding.
Second.
Third.
Have a motion and a second. Submit your votes.
Makes it more powerful.
Submit your votes.
Okay. I'll vote Fran.
See the votes.
Yeah,
Unanimous
think
approval,
about it.
To continue the employment of city attorney per the letter of agreement. That is the last item on our agenda, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long night.
Was that we got you and Sharon.